Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the United Adventure Company presents Delta Green Impossible Landscapes, back from our 3 week hiatus. Happy to be here with you all. We missed you so much on Wednesday nights. I hope that you missed us as well. It's been a minute. Does anybody remember what's been going on?
Nathan does. Oops.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, but if you're out there and you remember, don't spoil it. We all want the surprise of what happened.
What?
Hey, but do go join our Discord. There's been a big announcement this week, and if you want to know what it is, you have to be in our Discord to find out. So go get the Discord. Little sneak peek, I will say that someone on your screen right now was our first Patreon member. So thank you so much. You know who you are. No, it wasn't you.
Waving at him.
Oh, well, now you've given it away. It's a he, see?
Wait,
You
It's
just
you,
said
isn't
it
it?
wasn't her.
Yeah. We're all in a mood tonight, y'all. So glad you could be here. But yes, a sneak peek, we do have a Patreon page. You can get the link in our Discord, so make sure you join the Discord. Other than that, I don't think we have too many announcements because you're going to want to go in the Discord and learn all about all the stuff that's going on anyway. So I'm going to throw it over to our handler because we started a little late, and we're going to get this party rolling. Take it away,
Right.
Nathan.
rock and roll. All right, I'll do the recap this time because it has been a hot minute since the four of you and the newly returned Gran have delved past the labyrinth of whispers into the ruined city. You spent some time there, kind of digging through the rubble, and you found various kind of odd architectural pieces, but no people. And wherever you went, you were always near this lake. It seemed like the city shifted around you. After a bit of exploration, you found some boats that you discovered could move at the speed of thought, or at least at the command of it, and moved onto the lake that turned to fog, passing down below the waves to the lights of the city below. Uh, as a reminder, let's talk about what you guys have on you at this point. Does everybody kind of want to give a rough estimate of what they think they've got going? Because it's been a little bit.
Don's got a London Fog trench coat missing one sleeve. Let's see, we broke through the wall.
You
We
have
have
a
a-
gun. You got a
Yeah.
gun.
We have a gun, a revolver, and a pickaxe,
Yep.
and maybe some teeth inadvertently ended up in my pocket.
I think I'm
Accurate.
carrying the pickaxe. I am also have my leather satchel, and it has books in it. If you give me a second, I can probably remember which ones.
Someone found
for
a
now,
sledgehammer.
Yeah, I was going to say
Oh, that's
a
what it was.
sledgehammer.
I had a sledgehammer. You had the pickaxe because you were digging when those guys showed up. I
Evan.
have the Hotel Broadalbin note from Abby to find JC Lens. I have a couple books that speak World Without Doors being one of them. And I think there was a book about Carcosa.
Did you still have the history of the Russo-Germanic hegemony?
That's what it was.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what it was. That's what it
Very
was.
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because it referenced Carcosa in the book. It wasn't about Carcosa, but I remember you said it referenced it.
All right. What about Gran? What's Gran got? There's a couple items in particular. I'm seeing if you remember you have amongst you.
Let's see. What did I write down?
Because these are all critical things, but some things you
I
might
know we
want to
had the
keep track of better
sledgehammer.
than others.
We had there was a pistol. Gran got Oh man, I can't remember. I can't find my notes from that week either.
It's probably been
There-
too long. Did you-
There's an invitation. There was an invitation.
good.
Yes.
And then also a book, a box, like a shipping label written in Russian, what appeared to be Russian. We have that. I don't know. Like it would probably go in my satchel. That's where I keep everything. So
Is this old? No, then maybe these are the right notes then. Do we have the Sioux Pipe Tomahawk still? Or is that old?
Don't think so. That's probably old.
Okay, so that's old.
That went into updraft shoulder at one point, didn't it?
yep.
I thought
And
we-
it was left. No, it got left.
it got
It got left in the room and burned with everything
That's right,
else.
so
that
that
was
one
in
was
front.
old.
Yeah,
I
you
have
can't
two
walk around New
notebooks that
York
I've
with
been
a hatchet.
tracking this game in.
To my knowledge, the only thing I've got is that small pistol that I got when Union that he stole off a
Bellhops.
Yeah, not the bellhops. He stole it off of the guy at the front desk. What was his
Yeah.
name? Lizette.
Lizette,
Yes.
yes.
And
the stabby thing.
yeah, and I when Union, after he killed him, he gave me the gun after he pulled me out of the pile of teeth. So that's basically the only thing I have on me is this gun.
Perfect. Yep. And then I will refresh your memory. You also have 2 bottles. You have one that has George's name on it. I believe it says in full George Earl Lawrence. And then you have J.C. Lynn's. You have their bottle as well.
Say we put Ursine in charge of the bottles.
Sounds good.
You generally
Yeah.
tend to stay alive pretty good.
Generally tend to, yeah. You just jinxed me, I know it.
No, it'll be fine. Great. That covers it. You guys addressed a few things I want to make sure you remembered that you had recapped with the time being what it is. So we'll rejoin the group of you as your boats, because I believe Agent Undine went down a little bit ahead and landed in the streets of Ethiel. As you land, the boats hit the ground with kind of a little dull wooden thunk, and you realize it's now just resting on cobblestones. And as the mist around you starts to clear and you hear the clunk next to you of the other boat, you can see the fog is drifting away all around you, and no longer above you. You don't see these whale type shapes. Instead, you see it revolves into the night sky, filled with these black stars and moons, just looking at you almost like eyes. The city now, where once it was ruins, is now restored, and you can very clearly tell here and there that these are the same buildings, roughly, as above. But now they have lights in them. The street lights are restored. In the far distance, but yet incredibly close, you can see a massive bulbed towers, I should say, of a palace that almost seems to lurk over the city and proper. And again, it feels like you could almost touch it, but it's not. It's clearly on the other side of the city. It's very far away. And as you're kind of getting acclimated, you realize that in the city, kind of near the edges of your vision, it ripples. And where once there was a door, becomes a window, becomes an archway, and then you look at it and it stops. You get the feeling that this whole thing kind of is moving on you. Other than that, though, this kind of you kind of have this almost Victorian style city, and you don't see anyone there.
When you say the city's moving, does it like it's rotating around us, or like it's just shifting and changing?
It's shifting and changing more. Yeah.
Any signs of life? Rats, bugs, up near the lamps.
There, yeah, you kind of go by the lamp. You do see, as you get closer, something kind of scurries away. So yeah, you seem to think that there is some life where above there was none.
What's the
Are any of
time-
the buildings? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you said Victorian time period, like.
Yeah, it kind of has a Victorian feel, but it's wrong. If any of you has architecture, you would clearly know that this is not fully the style of the time. There's strange bulbs, like the architecture has kind of a strange flair to it. But it has like the wooden shutters, the cobblestone. There's those iron fences that you had dealt with before. It's familiar, but not completely right.
Horses and buggies on the streets.
There are a couple of them that are broken down, but there are none that have actual horses or anything. You see a couple have broken wheels that hang off to the side.
Are there homes or brownstone-sized buildings near us?
Yeah, they'd be a brownstone is kind of the right feel. As you get the feeling that many of these are more living quarters, along with there's some businesses, but you think people would live in this area.
I want to look. Are there like external stairs on these buildings, like a fire exit or a fire escape, or Peter Pan door or something like that?
Go ahead and let me see. Just checking something. No, take your time. Yeah, as you kind of walk around a little bit, looking off the edge of one of these, you do see that there is a bit of a iron grating stairwell that goes up. Looks like this is kind of a 3-story apartment building,
And it goes up to the roof, or
Yeah.
at least the
Yeah.
the windows of the third story.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any doors on it, or is it just like a fire escape?
It's a fire escape. You see there are
Okay.
windows.
Yeah,
next
yeah,
to
that's
it,
fine.
But yeah.
Okay. So with that, Updraft is going to look at everybody, and he's going to like motion toward the fire exit, and then he's going to make his way up, and he's going to look through the windows and see if there's anyone inside the building doing anything. And he's going to go all the way up to the 3rd floor, and if he doesn't see anything, he's going onto the roof.
Walking up the side of this as you're looking through these windows, you actually see that a lot of them have almost like papering over them of newspapers. It looks like they are covered for the most part, but you can still see through cracks in them. And you can see that these look like apartments. They have a few rooms in them, but all of them look like they've been cleared out. And you do see some like tipped over chairs. Looks like there's some plates that have some moldy food on it. Like this was left in a hurry is kind of the impression you get. Additionally, you see some writing on the wall that looks like it was kind of hastily put there with a piece of charcoal here and there. Do any of you know Tartessian?
Yeah, I've got like 80%.
Yeah, you got like 80%.
That's a 95 for me. Yeah, sure.
Is that a Native American dialect?
Yeah.
Or Farsi?
It is not, I'm afraid.
Tartars, right?
Yes. You're not quite sure. Who has a? I think Don, you've got a pretty good feel for history, right?
Yeah, I do speak Persian,
We've got anthropology
Okay.
and history as well.
and a lot of Turks speak Persian.
I speak
Yeah.
Arabic.
Yeah. Go ahead. As you're looking through this, go ahead and roll that at a just flat. We'll just do flat.
Okay, I got you. All right, 50%. And yep, 34. Yes, I succeeded.
All right. You look at this text and you're kind of putting this like, is it some offshoot? Maybe it's close. And as you're looking at it, you do realize, yeah, I actually can read this. I can read a couple of these. As this one written there says, "Burn, stay away from the city center." And a little further on, it's gone to meet Mama and Dory at the farm. They look like their messages left behind by like the occupants.
Run my hand over the letters. These people evacuated.
Real quick, the letters that I'm assuming that Undine followed me. The letters on the wall, which I can't read, is that the same language as the newspaper?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no way to read anything. I'm sorry about that background noise.
You're fine.
So there's no way to read anything
Well, that's
for
the
me.
that's the odd thing. Yeah. Go ahead and you're trying to read it. Let
Yeah,
me
I
go something
mean,
real quick.
I
This is the
speak a
joy of me
little bit.
reading.
of
Yeah,
other
you're you're staring at it too. And then you realize, yeah, you can read it too. And you're getting the context of this message. Even though you've never spoken this before.
in the newspaper. I'm more interested in trying to read the newspaper because I'm right up on it. I'm assuming he's peeking through the crack and looking at the thing on the backside. And so I want to read the newspaper and see if it references anything that would make sense to me.
Yes. So Agent Updraft is you're kind of looking at this backwards a little bit through the window, but you see kind of in big head like block letters, attack, and the text starts discussing that the Black Wind, which had been kind of building up resources, has finally broken through into the siege of Ethiel.
So how much sand loss is that?
Yeah, go ahead and roll.
Oh, I failed. I already failed. I already knew it
roll a
was coming.
d4 as you realize you've read about this in your book.
Hmm.
All right. I lost 2.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
So with that, I'm assuming that we were on the 3rd floor and we are looking through this. I'm going to motion down to Gran and Undine and Ursine and go ahead, and I'm going to motion for them to come up, and then I'm going to climb onto the roof. I'll throw the sledgehammer up first and then jump
Okay.
up, pull myself up, and get onto the roof.
Perfect.
Right. I will let Ursine go first, as my arthritic old knees are going to take me a minute to get up here. I don't want to slow anybody down. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll be there momentarily.
I'm sure you'll do better than you're giving yourself credit for. But yes, I think I am going to go ahead and go on up there. Please try to hurry, and I'll go up, follow up to the top.
Agent Updraft, could you make me a sanity roll? Apropos of nothing.
Oh, just because?
Yeah, it's a crit failure.
Okay. Yep. You make it up to the roof, and you find yourself up on the third floor of this structure. You do see there appears to be a hatch in the roof that would lead down into the apartments. Doesn't look like they have a staircase necessarily, just be a ladder. And looking out over this city, you can see the palace remains large in the distance. And around you, it's rooftops and rooftops, kind of whichever way you go. Behind you, you can see the spoke-like center that you landed in your boats. And it's really, really difficult to tell how close you are to the palace, because as you're looking at the buildings in between, it seems like it changes and moves between near and far, and everything just gets very weird. Roll a sanity again. This is a 1 and a 1d6.
Yeah, it's a failure.
Yeah, roll a d6.
All right, that's 4.
Okay. Yeah, so how does Updraft deal with this? Is the other three are kind of looking through? I'm assuming Undine, you're kind of close behind him at this point.
I'm actually staring at architecture. I'm quite fascinated.
Excellent.
So Updraft just kind of looks around and he's trying to get his bearings, as he would whenever he's in a situation like this. And as he realizes that everything is shifting, then he immediately becomes suspicious of his compatriots who have come with him, because they are extensions of him. And so whatever they are reading, whatever it is that they are doing, is clearly having an impact on the geography of this city. And so he suspects that they need to stop what they're doing, or he needs to get inside where he can center himself and be able to regain his composure and control and get all of them acting right again, like they were before when we came down here. And so he's going to immediately go and get in that hatch. That hatch is opening up. There is no reason it won't open.
All right. Roll a. Actually, never mind. You don't do that. Okay. Yeah. You open it up, and you find as you open the hatch that there is a rusted ladder there that leads down, but you see the floor beneath it is broken, like a bombshell hit it of some kind on the inside.
Yeah, that's cool. We're going to climb down that ladder because there's probably something that I can leap to. So grab the sledgehammer and just descend into the building, because looking around, that's not an option anymore. Not right now.
Yep. Do you warn the others about this?
No, they already know. I think real hard
Okay.
about it at them.
Okay. All right. As Agent Updraft is heading down into the building, kind of carefully down this ladder, what are the other three up to?
This is fascinating. It's like a proto-Turkish civilization, and just by luck, they've left somewhat recently. Well, maybe not super recently, but the scale of time recently. Where's Updraft?
So before you guys answer, Undine is talking to you, and he's speaking in a language you have no idea what it is. Undine, you can spend a willpower if you want to force through kind of this weird, like, you can almost feel it on your tongue as you're talking. You think you're speaking Tertessian.
Well, this is fascinating. I'm not going to stop this. This is great.
Gran, of course, is what's that, dearie? I can't make out what you're saying. You're speaking a weird language all of a sudden.
Brandon starts fucking with the with her hearing aids.
Yeah, like-
maybe it's turned down.
Yeah, it sounds kind of Russian, Persian, kind of. Yeah, it's very interesting to listen to. But yeah, it's.
I'll
not clear.
brighten up, lift my shoulders up, point at my face, point at the writing on the wall, give him a thumbs up. And then I'll look around for, obviously, for someone who is not hearing and shrug, point.
Well, I figure if he's pointing at this writing on the wall, I'm gonna go take a look at this writing on this wall.
Yeah, seems
If-
legit.
As you guys get closer, I tap you and I point to where another person should be.
Yeah,
I look at
where's-
you, I look at the empty spot, shrug.
I don't.
I count
I
on
saw
my
him go
fingers.
up.
One. There we
You-
go.
Are you are you looking for updraft?
Point at them and thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think,
don't know where he went.
I think he kept going up from what I saw. I was climbing up while you were staring at that and watching my step. He went up on the roof.
I'll climb up the ladder
Okay.
or the.
And then I'll turn to the newspapers as well and try to give it a read.
Yeah, go ahead and roll some kind of. Actually, I got
History,
something.
anthropology.
It's actually shortly after I'm doing some rolls in secret. There's some interesting behind the scenes stuff here. Pretty
Secrets.
quickly you begin to realize, yeah, I can understand this as well.
Hmm.
This is fascinating.
And you say that out loud, and Ursine, you hear something in Tartessian, some very short quip.
Well, now I have to see what she's looking at.
You guys are rolling hot as you also are reading this text, and you're getting closer and closer. Yeah, okay. It's talking about an attack. The forces of the king are resisting this siege
Wait,
from the false king.
wait. And I'll look at Ursine. Is this what Chastain was talking about? The war? Some war in a weird land? This is definitely a weird land, and it looks war-torn. Is this perhaps what he was talking about?
It may be. I don't have any way to say for sure one way or another, but we certainly are in a strange place that has been beset by war.
Yes. Well, I guess we should join the others. You give me a boost?
All right, I'll give Gran a boost.
I'll help lift her up. Strangers in a strange land, is it?
Yes, it seems to be.
And now you all clearly understand each other. You think you could force through if you wanted to and speak in your original language if you wanted, but that's entirely up to you. Well, in terms of you'd have to spend willpower to do it. It feels like you've been speaking this your entire life.
I think it's Grand definitely thinks it's better if we can all understand each other, and unless other people start speaking in a language I don't understand, I'm just gonna keep going with the flow.
When in Rome, or Carcosa, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And as you get onto the roof following updraft, you also see this city wavering in front of you. Go ahead and everybody roll sanity for seeing this with the palace lurking behind everything.
That's a fail.
Roll a d6.
Fail.
Fail.
Yep. Yep.
3.
That checks
This place
out,
is
right?
tough to look at.
2.
Not bad.
3. All right. Hold on. That might actually be another breaking point for Grand. Oh wait, no, it's not.
All right. Anything you wish to say prior to jumping to updraft?
Do we see the hatch open? Like, because
Yeah,
we look
you
around
see
and we
it,
obviously
yeah.
see Updraft isn't here on the roof, and then we see the hatches open. Well, perhaps he went inside. I'll go over and look down the hatch.
What is Updraft doing? What does Grant see him up to?
So when Updraft climbed down, is there a platform or anything that he could leap to? Is there a part of the ground, the
yeah,
floor
there-
that is still intact?
There is a couple planks near the base of the ladder. Then there's a pretty big gap, but you think if you make a dex check basically, or athletics of some kind, you could probably jump next to the door if you wanted, and then maybe onto the stair landing. Otherwise, you'd probably be dropping a couple floors.
Yeah, we're gonna make that jump. We're gonna
All
go
right.
for it. That is a success. 39 on a 61.
All right. Yeah, which where are you ending up from this jump as you see looking down Agent Updraft hop?
My intention is to get to the door so I can go through the door. I'm also assuming the door doesn't open into this room, that it opens out of this room.
Correct. You're in more of a hallway area, right?
Yeah, security and also like
Right.
so yeah, I want to go through that door and begin to explore the building and also basically clear it as best I can, looking for either survivors, signs of survivors, because I know we saw the moldy food stuff, but
Yep.
or anything that might be a more solid indication of or explanation of the palace, what's going on here.
Okay.
Side
Go
exploitation.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead and roll a sanity check, please.
Success. 10 on a
Success.
37.
You open one of these rooms. You're looking for someone, and you find a body laying there on the floor. It looks not fresh. Would be putting it kind of gently. It looks like it's kind of been there for a while, and the dust. It doesn't even really smell that bad. But it looks like they took their own life with a razor blade, and they're kind of leaning. This is a kind of a apartment room that you end up. They're just kind of lying in bed, past, and you can see they're holding a like a how do I put it? Like a little pamphlet.
Yeah, what's that pamphlet? Grab that first.
And you look at it, and you can read in Tartessian. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly. I definitely won't. Iazel will protect the citizens of Ithil. And on it, you can see it's got kind of on the front, it's a little bit of a religious tract, kind of looking through it. You see this saintly woman that has a red spot in a gown, and she's holding her hands out, and in each hand is a book, and you recognize the face as that of Van Fitz.
Okay. I also recognize that she is fulfilling the role of the girl in A World Without Doors and in The Yellow King, because I read both of those.
Yep.
So, and it looks like Van Fitz,
Yes.
or it is Van Fitz.
I mean, it's not like a picture; it's a drawn thing.
Okay,
But
okay.
you looking at it, like you're pretty sure it's her.
I mean, yeah, I shot her in this gut. I got a good look at her face.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So that's interesting. Anything else in the room, in the pockets? I'm going to run the pockets. If they got shoes on, I mean, if they're better than mine.
Yeah, they got shoes on and stuff. They're roll luck.
They are not better than mine.
They're not only are they not better, they don't fit.
And they probably have feet in them still. That was
Yeah,
real
they,
bad.
they definitely do. Yeah. Yeah. So,
All right.
unpleasant.
Yeah, okay. So I found this person. What else is it? They're in like a bathroom or a living room. They're
This
in a
is
chair.
in their room. Yeah, they're in their room on the bed. Looks
Okay.
like they just gave up.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and continue searching the room, and I'm going to think a message to the rest of me to all right, so all of y'all got that.
Um, 1 second.
You know what it is, Ursine. You heard it.
Just checking something. No, you guys don't hear. You guys don't hear a damn thing.
I am
think so.
positive they did.
Yes.
Yep. So, Gran, looking down, you see Agent Updraft jumping into these rooms down below from this rusty ladder. What are the three of you doing?
Are there any clotheslines or wire running up on the roofs of these buildings?
You're looking around for it. Yeah, not on this building, but you can see kind of down an alleyway over there. Yeah, there's a few clotheslines.
Nothing
with,
accessible.
not from this roof. Yeah, you'd have to like go over a building. It wouldn't be that difficult. You see, you could just have to, go down, go across the street, and you could get into that building probably.
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. And so you're going that. Where are you going? We should really
Did it-
stay together.
I'm getting some rope
Why?
Why? There's a
so
ladder.
we don't. It's in pretty ill repair.
Well, Updraft made it. He'll catch
Doc,
us.
you want to go first? You're the lightest of us.
Sure, I'll go.
Yep, going down the ladder. Going down
Yeah.
the ladder's pretty easy.
Mhm.
The trick is, are you making the jump to the doorway, to the stairwell? What's your plan there?
Let's see. Making a jump. All right. Yeah, I guess I can try to make a jump. What do you want me to roll? That's a
Dex
dex?
or athletics, if you have it.
Okay. I will see if my dexterity will get me there. Yes. I got a
Alright.
not 5. So yes.
Yeah, you can hop in there. You see Updraft looting the rooms, so to speak. You get the impression he's been thinking at you pretty hard as of late.
Have you found anything interesting in here?
Well, he can't find his unmute button.
Ha! I hold up the flyer. And I look at her. I look at Ursine. I was just like, that Van Fitz lady that I shot. Tell me this doesn't look like her. And I throw it to Ursine.
All right. So I read it. I look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like her.
Looks a lot like her. I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, isn't that weird? That she's here and
Out of-
there.
Out of all the things that we have seen here, this is the one that you're going to comment on.
Nothing else that we've seen here has been present in the building, in the McAllister. Nothing else we've seen here has been present anywhere that we've been. Not in the hotel, not the Bottle Bin, not the park, not Idaho, not the bookstore, nothing. So, yeah, it's kind of weird that there's a crossover.
Okay. It is very strange. I will give you that.
She's also filling a role. She's the savior who becomes the thing that she's trying to save everything from. Which is probably why this place is empty, because, you know, she killed everybody saving everybody. Or she fled, but the script says that she ends up being what it is that she's fighting against.
Hmm.
Does anything here resemble the Russo whatever hegemony? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is this all kind of like is seeing all of this making that make more sense?
Yes. I mean, not really in the same way. Do you have any history of any kind?
10%,
10%?
just base.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm just going to continue to toss the room.
Okay.
And, you know, like motion toward the door for Ursine. Like, just go look. Yeah, it's one of those, like, you know, go do something. Like, he's very intensely searching this room. Like, yeah.
Okay. And I'll just shrug my shoulders and turn around and walk out. I guess when I leave, what else do I see in this hallway?
So if you're leaving the rooms, you could make a quick jump to the stairs and go down another level if you wanted to.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give that a shot.
All right. And as you walk down to the second floor, you do find kind of the next room, and its door is cracked open. And as you walk into it, you realize from the inside this is a quite different room than what you were looking at, and it is filled with sculpting and painting tools and sculptures in progress, like to the brim, where tables are piled with these different vases and everything, and it's kind of a wreckage. They've been mostly smashed by, it looks like, just people coming in and hitting them with something, except for one. There is a perfect marble sculpture of a nude young man, kind of like a David's type thing, life size, and it is astonishing the level of detail that is on this. Like, just kind of, even from the doors you're kind of walking in, the level and detail of this makes, like, Michelangelo is a hack, like, compared to whoever carved this. Clearly this is amazing.
Okay. Well, I feel drawn to look at it more closely.
Okay. As Ursine, you get up closer, you're able to see like little blemishes in the skin, even like individual hairs of this in marble. And it, as you're getting up close, it almost seems like it's glowing, like from within a little bit.
Okay. I want to touch it.
Okay. You reach out and you touch it, and it flashes with a brightness of almost sunlight. And underneath, as you touch it for just the smallest bit, you feel marble, and then you feel flesh. As there is now a nude young man in the room, go ahead and roll a sanity check.
Pass.
Do I see that flash of light as I'm kind of deciding whether I want to go down this ladder next or not.
Yeah, you can see it in the alleyway. Looks like from the second story there's a flash. Undine, you were heading out, right? You were going across the street.
Yes, to get
Yeah.
the ropes.
Yep. So you're kind of down on the street. We'll pick back up with you in a second. But yeah, you also see it behind you as sunlight flashes out of this window, and this young man kind of steadies himself and blinks and looks at you. Hello?
Who are you?
I'm Clark. What is going on?
Well, Clark, you were a marble statue until I touched you. And now you're back to what I imagine is your true form. So, do you know how you got turned into a marble statue?
No. It's Anaric gave me a drink. I was asleep. Did you? What happened here? And he's looking around the room. He's stepping down from the plinth. He looks like he's looking for something. What? Did you see who did this? Did you do? What happened?
I did not see who did this. I, in fact, just got here. Some friends and I came from far away, and we're trying to figure out what happened here. As best I can tell, there was a war, and somebody bombed out the palace. But we haven't seen anybody else living until you.
The palace has been bombed.
Yeah,
Oh no.
there's been some sort of a war.
It's oh dear. I must have been out for too long. And he's looking. You see, he actually brushes some stuff aside and pulls out just a robe, like the kind you'd put on after just something to cover your bits. And he's kind of cinching it. What about the fighting?
Well, right now there's nobody here.
Oh no. I can't lose Anaric too if he went to the fighting. The Black Wind is merciless.
Anaric.
Yes, the sculptor, my friend.
Oh. And the Black Wind?
Yes, they've been attacking. We've been ready for them for so long. I thought we would leave, Anaric and I, but he the drink we shared, he must have knocked me out. Oh, if he went to go and join the fighting, he is not a fighter.
Well, perhaps there's some hint somewhere around here as to where he may have gone, if you would know where to look.
Yes. Let me. And he starts trying to. He's looking. The shoes are gone. His cloak. He must have left. Oh no.
I think there was an evacuation.
Oh no. I have to go find him. I'm sorry. Good luck. And he's running out of the room at that point. Unless you stop him, obviously.
I'm gonna yell after him. Wait! Hold on, we might need your help.
No, this is he cannot fight.
We don't know anything of this place. Please. Wait, let us try to help you. You can try to help us. You're the only living person we have seen since we've been here.
Go ahead and roll a persuade. That's a good.
Nope. That's
Nope.
fail.
Alas, he's you must find your own way. He's kind of, you hear him scampering down the stairs.
Oh, damn. Alright.
And let's jump from that as you're kind of watching him book it out the building. Agent Undine, you are heading across the street. It sounds like. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and roll a sanity check for me as you're going.
Yep, I'm good.
You're good. In the distance, you are hearing a little bit of gunfire as you're walking, but it seems pretty distant still. And as you walk across the street, you find that the door shimmers for a second and is crushed. It was there a moment ago, and now it's underneath rubble. You can still see up in the building there are these clotheslines that you have a pretty good view on.
I'll go ahead and try to climb up to or reach up to where the clotheslines are and appropriate a couple.
Okay. Yeah, they're probably not that far up that you couldn't stand on something and reach for them. And you're getting these. You have a pretty good history. You're recognizing this clothing
Mm-hmm.
kind of has a French fashion from the late 19th century. You're thinking,
Okay.
but it's very like working class clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're pulling these down and getting the clothes off, getting the rope unfettered, there is a hey, psst, hey, sir,
Turn around.
sir, hey, come here, come. And there is a young man with a very careful mustache and small spectacles is gesturing to you from a bit of a blind doorway. Like, you can see there's a doorway there, but if you were on the street, you wouldn't be able to see it. He's like, quick, come quick.
Okay. I will take my bundle of ropes in my left hand to distract from me putting my hand in my right pocket, and I'll dash over there. Why haven't you evacuated?
Yes, of course. There's no time. We must uprise against the false king.
Just
You
you and me?
No, of course not. We will all work together. The
All
revolution.
who?
The people of Ethia.
There's just you and me and my friends.
No, I assure you, there are many of us. The
Could
army
you-
is at the front line, closer to the palace.
Oh, well, where are all the people that were here?
Some of them went to fight, some of them fled. I do not know, but it is up to us to fight still. For those that remain, here. And he, you kind of have this hand of rope, and he pulls 12 sticks of dynamite that are wrapped to an old ticking alarm clock, and then just plops them on the rope.
This
And
is
you can see,
ticking.
yeah, it is literally ticking right now.
How long until this goes off?
You're looking at it, and it is a very frustrating clock to look at, because it moves a second, then there's a long pause, and then it moves 3, and then it moves back a couple. It doesn't make sense as you're looking at it, but he kind of sees your quizzical look and he goes, "Do not worry, it will go off at midnight."
Okay. So, your compatriots that aren't at the front line, where are they? These houses are empty and there's moldy food on the tables.
No, they are just hiding.
Show me someone, please. Anyone.
Okay,
You are the first person I've seen. It is.
I do not.
There's almost not even mice stirring.
Yes, I suppose. We do not have so much time. Fine, come here. And he hustles across the street, and you see him rap, like on a on one of these doors. Lamarck! Lamarck! Quickly! There is someone that wishes to join us. And there's a moment, the door cracks a little bit, but you don't see anyone behind it.
Is someone there?
And it opens a little wider. And you can see there are 3 people standing behind the door. There is obviously a father type figure, and then a woman, and then a young child. All of them have blood-stained pillowcases over their head with holes in the middle and muzzle burns there. They're very obviously dead.
Okay. Okay. Well, that resolves any questions I had about how many of you there were. Well, my friends and I, we're not from here.
I do not. All right, but you cannot avoid. You serve the true king.
I would say that we're allied with the true king. Definitely against the false king.
And this is great news. Wait, do you have friends? I have more dynamite.
I have just a few friends.
How many is a few? I will get you more.
Well, there's 3 more of us. Do you have any that isn't wired up to a clock?
Well, that would be useless. No, of course not.
Have you ever just tried lighting and throwing dynamite? It's quite effective.
I am not one to be up close. Their weapons are quite effective. I prefer to set the timer. Yes.
Who are they?
The forces of the Black Wind, sons of False King.
What do they look like? Are they just men like you and I?
No. Well, yes, they are men, obviously, but they have these looks. They have the fezzes. They have the black uniforms and these red fezzes. And the symbol, it is a black flag with 3 lines like a wave.
Are they fascists?
I do not. I think some of them might be.
No, we can't have that.
It is not a political thing so much for me. They do not serve the true king.
We will accept some more dynamite.
Excellent.
And supposedly there was a fire at the city center or something like that.
Yes, there's unrest. You do not wish to go there.
So how do we attack the forces of the false king?
There should be a line. If you go towards the palace, they are there. They have not breached it.
Can I hear sounds of fighting anywhere?
Yeah, it's distant, but yeah, you think kind of towards the direction of the palace itself.
Okay.
The nobility, they are having a ball tonight, you know. A show of how do you say, solidarity.
Do you have anything more practical than dynamite? Say, like, I hold up one of the cartridges and I found like something like this.
No. I have only the dynamite. I'm sorry.
That's fair. I guess we'll take what you have.
Ah, very good. Here you go. And he runs kind of back to his little room, and you see he pulls out 3 more bundles of dynamite. And they're all ticking. So you have these 4 ticking clocks that they're not in sync.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We will try to. You said midnight. What time is it now?
Do not ask these questions of me. Go. You must go now before they look too hard. Please,
Okay.
go.
Thank you.
Oh, and you see he shoos you away, and the door is closing, and he wishes, "Death to the king!"
That's the false king.
Click, click. Yeah. And you're left in an alleyway with these ticking time bombs.
I'll go walking around the corner with my rope. Now, these are just sticks of dynamite attached to igniters, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I will just cut them free with my pocket knife.
Yeah. You think? So, do you have any demolitions or craft mechanics?
Let's see here. Craft mechanics. Actually, no,
You think it might be kind of dangerous to do that?
because they're
You're-
really old dynamite.
Yeah. Well, just the wires are not expertly put in, and it just the way it's built, you need a certain level. I mean, you can roll it at +20, but if it doesn't go well, it's going to be quite messy.
Gotcha. I'll just carry them for now.
Yeah, it's got an armful of dynamite. And we will zip back upstairs for the moment. Gran, what are you doing?
Well, I've seen Ursine come out, go downstairs. There was a flash of light, and then someone probably heard them running down the stairs, I guess.
Yeah, you would have heard some kind of foot slaps on the stairs.
Well, I'm gonna go down to make sure that Ursine's okay.
Yep. Make a dex check once you hit the bottom of that ladder, just so I don't forget.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a fail. Not a critical
Okay.
fail, but a fail. I knew
Okay.
these dice were gonna let me down. I knew it.
So first thing, go ahead and roll a d6. As you make a leap, and there's a moment of your foot catches wrong on the wood, and you scrabble and you kind of go thud, and you fall 2 stories down and slam into the floor. And the good news is it breaks your fall because the floor itself shatters underneath you, and you fall down 1 more story, and actually end up finally, once it's all said and done, in the basement. And
Right.
you're immediately, you're in the dark at this point. But there's a little bit of light from the hatch, I guess, actually up above, that's hitting down from the moons. And your eyes take a moment to adjust, and you start to realize the smell of old blood and old feces. And as you look around this room, you see the yellow sign emblazoned all over the walls, over some crates that are there. It's everywhere you look. Additionally, you do find a flag that is kind of hung up on the wall. It is a yellow flag with 2 circles and dozens of black dots on a white sky. And as you're kind of looking around, you realize kind of near the stairs leading up, there is a dress laid out on the floor that looks almost like it was somebody was running and they just disappeared and the clothes fell to the ground.
So it's like crumpled into a
Yeah.
weird. So there's crates, the yellow sign.
Yep.
You said the smell of blood. It doesn't also have that musky smell, like that animalistic musky smell, does it?
No,
Okay.
no, not the one you're so familiar with.
Yes, the one I'm very familiar with. Just making sure there's not going to be one of these paper tigers. Are these crates open, closed, sealed?
There's there's a couple that are open.
And it doesn't seem like there's anybody else in here. I guess I'm kind of looking around. I'll go check out what's in these crates. Let's see.
All right.
First, I'll yell, "I'm okay." That
What was that?
If you look out the door, Ursine, you do see Agent Unicorn in the basement, kind of brushing themselves off a little bit.
it's okay.
Are you okay?
I'm perfectly fine, dear.
She's bleeding a little.
Yeah.
You don't look perfectly fine. You look
Look-
like you need medical attention.
Well, maybe I need a band-aid or two, but looks can be deceiving. Hey, there's some crates and stuff down here. You want to come give me a hand?
So if I look around, how easy is it going to be to go down there and get her?
It looks like she is at the foot of the basement stairs. She just made a fall to it. She took the express route.
Okay. Well, then I'll just go ahead and walk down the stairs the normal way, as opposed to falling through a hole in the floor.
All right. And when you get down there, you're both looking in these crates. You pop them open, and you find that there are in straw. There are paint cans. Lots and lots of paint cans of various shades of color.
Okay, not all yellow.
Right, not all yellow.
Okay.
I want to try to open one of the paint cans.
Yeah, you pop the lid with some nearby tool, and you are greeted with the waft of fresh paint.
All right. I want to pour it out and see if there's anything in this other than paint.
All right,
Nice.
you go ahead and make a sanity check, please.
Yeah, here we go. That's when you know it's about to get real. That's a pass.
Okay.
While she's dumping the paint, I'm gonna go check out the dress, just so you know where I'm headed. Oh, that's paint. I don't want that.
Perfect. Oh yeah. So what falls out as the paint hits the ground and it kind of flows a little bit? There is the distinct clank of a jewelry locket that hits the ground, and you're looking down. You remember, refresh my memory, Ursine, what kind of paintings did you see of Louis Manuel?
I looked at all of his paintings.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and as you're pouring this paint out, it's flowing around the cracks and everything, and this locket lands, and you recognize as it flows into this debris that Gran had knocked down that it is forming into the shape of that dancing clown. Go ahead and roll sanity another time.
pass.
All right. This is weird, but you're dealing with it, and you do see there is the locket that is landed in the middle of everything.
Well, I am going to pick up the locket and I'm going to try to wipe it off on something, and then open it up and take a look at it.
You quickly recognize this as the locket that you found however long ago in Luis Manuel's apartment. It is very fancy. You click it open easily, and you do see that there is an old man's picture on it, and the other one, I believe, has been scratched out. I'm just double checking that. But yes, you find a copy or the same amulet. You're not quite. I shouldn't say amulet, locket. The same locket that you found however long ago.
Okay. Well, I am going to clean it up as best I can, and then I'm just going to put it on.
Okay. Yes. Oh, actually, yeah. So this one is a little different. The other one you had found had shown a beautiful woman in it, but this one shows a an older man. So it's not quite the same. It looks like a different picture has been scraped off of this one.
Interesting.
Yes. And then what were you doing, Gran?
I'm gonna go check out that crumpled up dress that's on the floor.
Yeah, that one doesn't
What is
take
it?
too much as you. It's definitely lying like someone was running up the stairs and then just it fell without the person.
What is it like? Time
do you have
period
any
dress?
Yeah, do you have any history or anything?
Yeah, I've got 40 plus in history.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It is a French outfit. You're thinking kind of upper class French fashions, maybe late 19th century.
Okay. It probably won't fit in the
Yeah, probably.
in my handbag. I was just thinking maybe, but if it's 19th century French, it's gonna be poofy and big. So, um, does it look like it would fit Ursine?
I mean, you can roll luck and see.
32.
Yeah, you think so?
I'll pick it up and go, hey, Ursine, probably look pretty good in this. You'd also blend in with the area and the locals. Might be to our advantage to look the part.
So does this look like a dress I can just pull on over my clothes that I'm already wearing? And
Yeah, we'll say that. Your sleeves might poke out a little bit. I'm not an expert in 19th century French fashions, but I imagine it's very, very dressy. So we'll just say it doesn't have a lot in the way of sleeves. So, yeah, if you were trying to dress the part, you'd probably
yeah,
you'd stand out if somebody knew. But
yeah. So yeah, I'll pull it on top of the clothing I'm already wearing.
And I guess too, when I turn around, I see all of this paint that is spilled out all over the floor, and I see that paper clown image. Like, oh dear, what have you done? And oh, that's a fail.
roll a d4 then. Yeah,
D4.
you're standing at that.
Don't you love? Oh, that's 4. Ow. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember seeing that in the
wonder-
park almost.
Well, this one did this. I wonder what happens if I dump out another can of paint. So then I take out another can of paint and dump another can of paint out.
Just on the floor.
Yep.
Yep. You pour it out and you see the next one looks like the stairwell with the figure wreathed in flames, kind of. Obviously it's only really one color, but as it's catching bits of the like drywall and the wood that went, it's interesting how it makes the picture.
Interesting.
It is interesting. Is each one of these cans of paint a different scene from the play?
Perhaps. Do you want to dump all of them out? We might need to go outside so we have more room.
I think it's worth at least 1 or 2 more just to test the theory. You know, for science.
Okay. Yeah, go right ahead.
And that's all that's in these crates is they're just crates of paint.
Paint cans. Yep.
I'm going to take the flag off the wall as well.
Okay.
Fold it up, wad it up, whatever, stick it in my handbag.
Okay.
You know, you never know when you might need a flag.
So you two are heading back out to the street, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thumbs up. All right. Then we'll jump back to Agent Updraft. Upstairs, you are still kind of casing the joint a little bit. You're not finding a lot other just stuff in this particular apartment. Looks like it was mainly cleared out prior to leaving.
Okay, yeah, and I heard unicorn fall, and I heard Ursine.
Yep.
Or I sensed
Correct. Yes, you
Ursine
sensed it.
going to offer assistance, and I feel pretty sure of my medical skills, so I trust me to handle that. Um, so there's nothing really left in this room. Uh, so I guess I would go ahead and descend down with the intention of, going down to the next floor, which I already know Ursine looked at.
Yep. Yep.
And then going to the floor below that, which is going to be the ground floor, and looking around there and finding the exit.
Okay.
Like I would look through, basically just quickly, search each room, and I'm just tossing. Like it's not
Okay.
like I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm doing it. I'm just pulling drawers out, dumping them, throwing them on the ground.
Yeah. The first floor, because you see once you get down to the first floor that the stairs continue around down to the basement. You can hear the two of them kind of coming up with paint cans at the time. You do see there is one remaining door to the apartment, which is the only one you haven't looked at, and then obviously out to the street. Sounds like you were going to go look at that apartment.
Yeah.
Yep. You open the door, and as you step in, you recognize the layout. Finally, it may have been eating at the back of your mind, but the way it was broken up made it unclear. But as you walk into this one, you realize this room has the exact same layout as Abigail Wright's apartment. The whole building, like 3 levels up, they're all the same. They're just cut differently. And this one is filled with these golden bugs flying among the plants that you've seen before, flying from pod to pod. There's kind of almost a little bit of a hum to them as they're fluttering around.
Okay. Are there any other is it just like a swarm of these things, and there's not really everything else in the room is just kind of
Yeah, it's been
overturned
cleared
and
out.
disarray?
Yep. Swarm's probably a little much, but they're noticeable. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the same layout as Abigail's apartment.
Yep.
But it doesn't have all the epoxy and everything stuck to the walls.
Correct. Yep. It is just purely the layout.
Turn around and go to the door to the apartment, which is across the hall from this one.
That one isn't there. It's basically there's the stairwell and then doors off of it leading to the rooms. So it's not exactly the McAllister.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
It's and that's probably part of why this didn't hit you at first, right? That first room is
Right. Okay.
layout.
All right. Well, then, with that, I suppose Updraft is going to go outside, trying to find, or if he hears them coming up the stairs,
Yep.
then I'll go and look down the stairs. Look down and see them coming up.
Yep.
And
carrying paint cans.
what'd y'all find?
It's magic paint.
Yep. Pour out a can. See a scene from the play.
That checks out because this is Abby's room.
Then
You
And
could drop one of the paint cans in there and see what it draws if it's in there.
nothing says we have to go outside. That's true.
there's a bunch of golden bugs in here, but I mean,
Really?
that's fine with me.
Huh. I want to take a look at that. So I'm going to go up there. And I'm going to go in.
Okay.
You said there are golden bugs and plants.
Yes. There are these pod structures with, I believe, spade-like leaves.
Okay. I want
You
to take
may
a
actually have some of those.
I want to take a good close look at both the bugs and the plants. Do you want me to give you 2 separate biology rolls?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna start
No,
with the bug.
just do one. We'll do it at a plus 20.
Plus 20. Okay. All right. Yeah, that would be a 45, 25.
Well, the good news is they are, they're not plants or bugs that you have ever seen before. But the plant itself, you see it kind of, it's like growing like weeds all around. It's kind of low to the ground. It's got spade-shaped leaves and gold stalks, and you see it's got these little golden copper plant pods that the bugs are going around. And you've seen enough kind of plant things with your biology. You think that this is something that could be refined into a drug. It's kind of got all the telltale signs of there's something there. The bugs themselves, they're kind of tiny golden beetles. You do see they are just kind of, looks like they're herbaceous. They're feeding on the plants. You're not getting any insight to them being like carnivorous if agitated or anything. They just appear to be golden bugs eating these plants.
Okay. Well, I would like to take a couple of these pods
Okay.
with me.
Easy enough to do. They pop off.
All right. If I were to inspect them using my pharmacy skill, would I have any idea what they might make?
Yes. I'll actually kind of roll that in with your biology one because you're pretty good at that.
Okay.
You think you could eat the pod directly. You think as well with a pod like this, usually there's something inside it that you could probably like crush and then snort if you wanted to. And then beyond that, just from that, another kind of like drug related thing is instead of snorting it, you could always inject it, right?
Mm-hmm. Do I have any kind of sense of what it might do? I mean, we've seen people eat things that seem to be related to this before, but...
I think the closest you would be familiar with would be a hallucinogenic kind of effect.
Mhm.
Sort of a euphoric kind of feel.
Okay. All right, I'm going to take more than a few of these, then.
Okay.
Let's say I take 10 of them.
Okay, yeah. There's definitely enough in there to grab.
Okay. So yeah, I'll take 10 seed pods and then I'll go, oh yeah, and I'll pull up the lid off the paint can and then I'll just chuck it on the floor.
Yep. And you chuck it on the floor and it spreads in the wood. You see the wood floor itself, as the paint is spreading, actually starts to crack a little and divot down. And it starts to make this shape, and the bugs start to fly to it. And before long, what you have is this picture is not really the right way, the spilled paint, and it's very clearly in the form of some great cloaked creature in a robe glittered with these golden bugs, and the face itself is left blank, but you can feel that it's looking at you. Go ahead and roll sanity as you see the king in yellows just kind of appearing on the floor.
Is that everybody that's in there?
Everybody that's
passed.
looking, yeah. Go ahead and take one for a
pass.
for a pass. Yeah.
That's a pass. I like these dice better.
No, Updraft is straight up not having a good time with this.
Like, oh god.
Do a 1d6.
Oh. 4 updraft. What is that?
We can't see
can't
it.
see
It
it.
doesn't show right.
It's a 6. It's because
Oh, no.
the background is
Oh,
gold.
no.
All right, so All right, so that is not a breaking point, but that is certainly over 5.
Yes. Would you like to off put it to a bond, or are you taking it?
Oh, mm, yeah. I'll see what I can drop, what I can push, off.
All right, roll that d4.
2, which is good because that
Yep.
is exactly my bond score.
So who did you lose a bond with?
My only bond.
Oh no.
Oh no.
We probably should be giving you guys bonds with each other at this point. That would really should have.
Well, I mean, I
We're
don't.
in the game now.
I mean, everybody's just an extension of me.
Yeah, right.
So
You have huge bonds.
I love me, but I can't, push my sanity loss off on myself.
Yeah, that checks out. All right. Well, how does that hit Updraft then? Because the other two are kind of taking this and looking down at this figure. Okay.
So Updraft, seeing the King in Yellow form and remembering having seen or the pamphlet with Laezel. Was that the name on the pamphlet?
Iazel.
Iazel. Okay.
Yeah, Iazel.
Iazel.
I have played this multiple times for myself. Iazel.
Iazel. Got it. Okay. Excuse me. So remembering that, and then remembering that the girl in A World Without Doors is is named Abby. What he's realizing is that Abby is the King in Yellow. And that means that there is no finding her. And the only way out is through death. Because that's what we learned from the book. And so just kind of he just kind of has a realization that there's only one way out of here and there's only one way to survive. And the only way out of here is to die. And the only way to survive is to become the king. And Updraft has steeled himself to the resolution that he will be the king. Because survival is the primary motivator of Updraft.
Yeah, that checks out.
All right.
So he just sees this and has an epiphany. He's like, well, I mean, that's it. Like it's a sign for me. That is what I have to be.
And is that a fair time, Agent Undine? You were coming back with these sticks of dynamite. Would it be fair
Yeah.
to say are you coming back, or you? What's the plan?
I think I'm going to stash them in another house nearby.
Okay.
And make note of which one I did if I have to find a piece of charcoal or something just to draw a smiley face. I don't want to take a chance when I jump down they explode.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And as I'm making my way, I'm going to try to twine up the rope I have into a single rope.
Okay. Yeah, that's your hands are kind of working as you're walking, and you can see that the three are in. You can kind of see in the windows of that first one. You can see your compatriots on the first floor.
I'll wave at them.
And you guys can.
Nathan, can you hear me okay?
Yep. I
Okay.
can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're giving a wave. Looks like Gran is waving back cheerily.
I point at like the window and I point around and shrug.
I'll do the head fade and like there's a door in the landing, correct? on the first
Yeah,
floor.
yeah. There's a door on the landing. Yeah, if you go
I'll-
pop that, yeah.
Walk the way that she gestured, looking for a doorway.
Yep.
And I'll
There's-
open it from the inside. So
Hello.
welcome back.
We have rope now.
Well, we also have some very interesting magical paint, and Ursine has a new dress.
I have explosives. I left them in the building over there, though. They are not trustworthy.
Oh, well, I'm glad you didn't bring them here then, in case they go boom.
There's actually a living person here. They seem to think that the resistance is actively fighting, but I can hear. I do hear sounds of fighting.
Huh.
I don't know. That way.
Did you say burger or booger?
Maybe they're stuck in an eternal battle.
Maybe. You should see this. Updraft is
Definitely.
well. You'll see. Well, I'll usher to the
Yeah.
magical
Draft wants
paint.
to gather a whole bunch of these golden bugs and shove them into his satchel.
Okay.
Like that's what he begins to do.
All right, so Undine, Agent Unicorn is leading you into this room, and you can see Updraft leaping through these weeds, grabbing at little golden beetles that are there.
Don't eat those.
No intention.
I don't know how to play anyone else. but
Those are
Mercy,
the
sorry.
things that we weren't supposed to eat. In the
It's okay.
back in the lounge.
Oh, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I
Someone
know
else
what
can
these
eat
are
them.
for.
Yeah, this-
I've saved some in case we need to give some to somebody else. And they'd make a very interesting hallucinogen.
Oh, you
I never-
kids, your silly drugs.
Bert Silver, Bert
I met a very strange, deranged fellow who thought he was actively fighting a resistance against a false king.
Hmm.
Hmm.
A king, you say? Like this one? I'll point at the paint on the floor.
Updraft imagines like he's focusing on the beetles and he assumes that his older the representation of his wisdom when they said that motioned at him and he just kind of nods like a large noticeable nod from behind as he's just gathering these beetles and shoving them in his satchel. So y'all know we are on the verge of another break.
Yeah, so Don, go ahead and roll sanity as you see this paint that is still flowing on the floor. It almost looks like it's rippling a little bit of this
I
cloaked
failed.
figure. Yeah, roll a d6.
Even though this is the least strange thing I've seen.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, it feels strange, but it feels like it should be less strange. But just looking at it, it feels like this thing could just come right out of the floor and like it's there.
What is it?
It's a who, not a what.
Who is it?
That's the king in yellow. And don't you? I mean, you read the play.
No, I didn't.
I haven't read the play either. Should we have read the play?
That might be helpful if you knew what was in it.
I don't really think that is accurate after watching what's gone on as a result.
You don't need to read the play. It's fine. You know it. You know it. You've been living it. We've all been living it.
I guess
And
that's fair.
we will write the ending.
So looking around, do I or any of the rest of us realize that this room is the same layout as Abby's room?
Yeah, you're all getting that impression as you're looking around.
Oh, I told you. I told you guys in the hallway. That was
Mhm.
why we came in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
And then Don would notice that as well, or Agent. Agent Undine, also you recognize this is Abigail's apartment.
Oh, I'll just go sit on the only piece of furniture that we have. The
The
toilet.
toilet.
The toilet.
Toilet. Yep.
I'm curious.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm curious now. Do you still have that sign for the night manager?
Oh, I pull it out. I do have it in mind. That is something I had in my satchel.
I'm wondering. This looks awfully lot like Abigail's room, and there was an artist's supply room underneath, just like in the McAllister. I wonder if there is some kind of connection between these two worlds that we could open a door between.
The only way to leave this world is through death.
Are you
And I have no desire
to leave or to die?
to die.
I have about 12 sticks of Johnny Goodnight out there and an old alarm clock. Several.
What do you think we should do with them?
Use them to breach the palace,
That sounds like a good plan.
find the king, usurp the king.
Wait, is
That's
this-
what we should do with them.
Do you
I'm
think?
gonna look at Gran.
I don't know if that's the best course of action. It is a course of action.
It's the only course of action. There's no best because there's nothing else. I mean, unless you want to leave.
I'm not necessarily wanting to leave. I'm more curious if it's possible.
Oh,
Um,
you can leave.
I am growing weary of this.
Would my knowledge of history lend me any wisdom to the plan to usurp the king? Like, how has that played out in historical times for most, like, statistically?
Gunpowder plot.
Yeah, right. I mean, when it wins, I guess. But boy, there's a lot of times it doesn't go great.
Statistically, it's not the best course of action, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be my argument against this, from just a state of wisdom and history. This is not always the best course of action to take. It's has more probability of failing than succeeding. Now, and if you don't want to die, then chances are it's not the best approach.
It's the only approach.
Hand grenades
What
started
else
World
is
War
there?
One.
What else is there?
We've been to this one building and seen the few things here, and then our friend is given some dynamite, and you immediately think that that means that we're supposed to go to the palace and bomb it. That seems like quite the leap in logic there.
But he does. There does seem to be some sort of battle going on out there.
I won't pull out A World Without Doors and hold it out to Ursine and be like, here, you read it. You tell me the other course of action. Here, take it.
Okay,
And he aggressively shoves it at you.
okay, I'll take it. I'll even sit down and read it.
It wasn't very long, so
No, it's
But
not
it-
terribly long.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how long, but you'd think a couple
it's like
hours.
90. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
it's
2
not bad.
hours. Yeah. Yeah. It was like 80 pages, something like that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So while they're having that, I'll
I
pull the
do
flag
need-
out.
I do need a refresher on that book because it's been a
Yes.
while.
Yes.
If you go to the handouts, it's in there.
yeah,
Is it? Okay.
I'll recount it just for people. The cover looks like a imposing palace tower inverted above a city in which there are no doors. As you read, you are finding the book is about a little girl named Abby and her journeys to a magical, unnamed land. She travels between them by drowning herself. Uh, and in the world without the doors, she battles a nameless foe called the Phantom to free people from the dance, a music which forces the people to live boring, repetitive lives. If caught, she escapes the world without doors by drowning herself, only to appear back on Earth. She returns again and again, and in the end, the Phantom is defeated. But the girl soon realizes the city is collapsing into chaos without the song. She puts on the mask, becomes the Phantom, and begins the song again.
All right.
So that's going to take a bit of time, just to kind of read it.
Yeah.
So looping back up. The question I had for Updraft: do you mention the religious pamphlet that you found?
Who did I show that to already? I already showed that to Ursa.
Okay.
So I assume everyone already is aware. Yeah. So I wouldn't bring it up again unless it was brought up. Yeah.
I think just for ease of me,
I would tell Unicorn because Unicorn was with me when I shot that bitch in the gut for hitting me with the hatchet.
That's
And
true.
actually, yeah, so I would actually hold it out towards Unicorn and be like, so while we're deciding to go kill the king, and he just kind of rolls his eyes and holds the pamphlet out and is like, look who the previous savior attempted to be. And we all know where she's at. So clearly they're in need of a new messiah. And clearly, I mean, we all know, right? And he just kind of nods and hands the pamphlet to Unicorn.
Yeah, and I'll take it and read it, look through it. That is interesting.
and just because you're all close and I like doing this, Undine, you have quite a bit of occult knowledge.
Fair
You
amount.
would recognize, you would recognize the name Ayazel as an angel. Specifically, it considers the deliverance of prisoners for consolation, for deliverance from one's enemies, and it governs printing and books and men of letters and artists.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is one of the higher hosts here. This name.
Is this the first time we've heard this name?
Yeah.
You sure? Maybe I'm just reading into it. Maybe player knowledge is creeping in. Huh. So what? The image on the pamphlet again
Mm-hmm.
is Van Fitz, or a representation thereof. But what was the art around it?
She has a book in either hand. She's kind of got it outstretched, with the palms upwards, but the palms have books in them. You can see that she's wearing what you're kind of thinking might be a hospital gown, and there is a red spot around kind of her stomach area, where Updraft shot her. But she doesn't seem like she's in pain or anything. Just the look is very like saintly, beatific type.
She's
look.
a martyr.
Yes. Are we sure that this is past? This isn't current?
Is he going to shoot her again?
I'm sure he would like to shoot her again. I say as I'm reading.
I mean,
You say
what are we?
You say this is the previous But how do we know this isn't what's happening right now? That she isn't the one that's here right now causing the chaos that's here.
No, it's probably not her. It's probably the King in Yellow fighting whatever
Black
forces. Yeah. Well, the Black Wind are the fascists,
yeah,
the
well,
bad guys.
They gotta die anyway, so.
I mean, a king. Just what flavor of fascism do you prefer?
My Clifford has the Black Wind.
Not all monarchs are bad. Remember, they get their nicknames from the populace, and there's been several of the Justs.
Mm-hmm. Quite a few. Hmm. Well,
So, we are the proletariat. Let's take our explosives and go and free the middle class from the fascist Black Wind, was it?
the Black
By
Wind.
blowing the King in Yellow, back to whatever foul pit he climbed out of, and go home.
Okay.
Do you really think it would be that easy?
Hey, the only way out's through.
The only way out is through. All right.
I remember that Castaigne, he had all that information on this war. He had all those newspaper clippings and articles. I just wonder if there's some intelligence that we might gather if we. are too
Yeah,
bothered
I'll
dealing
hold
with-
out the sign. If you ask for it, I hold out the sign. You can have it.
Do y'all think
but
it's worth the intelligence?
I don't think it's accessible.
Huh. Well, give it a try. Worst thing that happens is we're still here. And I'll slap it on the door to the apartment and open the
Roll
door.
sanity.
Thinking about
All right.
Mr. Chastain or Castaigne. Those aren't matching dice. I need matching dice. Rolling sanity. Oh, that is a big failure.
All right. Well, why don't we go to break because we are overdue as
Oh.
you open the door and
It's the hallway.
rocks fall. Yeah.
Yeah. You open the door and nothing happens.
You
We'll find
drowned
the-
in a pile of teeth.
Teeth and dust litter the floor as you
yes.
step onto the carpet.
Ugh, the crunch of teeth under feet.
All right. So, yep. I slap the night manager sign on the door and we'll go to break. Guess we'll find out what happens when we come back. See y'all in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We're back from our break with our rehydration bottles and snacks, and we are ready to go. So I was slapping the night manager sign on the door and turning the doorknob, and I failed my sanity roll.
You failed your sanity roll.
Darn
And
it.
as you open the door, you find that the hallway is not there anymore. Instead, you find yourself walking into the apartment of the night manager, Mr. Castaigne.
Aha.
As you will recall, I'm sure, the room is filled with newspapers stacked up, many in Tartessian, in English. Like there's a variety. Now you recognize them. There is a old armchair sitting there that is terribly distraught. It looks awful. And from down the hallway, past the kitchen, you can hear some muttering and movement.
I'll call out. Oh, Mr. Chastain.
Ah! This is my voice. I remember it.
Yes, it is you. Wonderful. I'm so glad that
What
you're
are you
still
doing here?
Just came back from wherever.
What are you talking about? Why won't you leave me alone?
What language is Unicorn speaking?
Tartessian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
What language is
Castaigne
he
is
speaking?
responding in Tartessian.
All right.
Good questions. Good ask. Yeah. We've just come back from the war country, and it's worse than
What
we
are you-
thought. We need your
You
insight.
run in here, start asking me questions about who am I related to, and then you have the gall to just rush back in. What are you doing?
I'm not.
Get out.
I heard you say come in. Look, I know it's been a long, long day for you, probably, and we've intruded several times. Just, do you have any insight into what happened at the end of the war?
The war, the end of the war.
Yes, it did have an end, didn't it?
No, of course not. War does not end. What are you talking about?
The king was never killed? The false king.
No, of course not.
And what of the black
You see-
flag?
The Black Flag,
Black Wind.
Or black wind? Yeah.
Black Wind. Yes, they showed up from was it Turkey? No, I forget where exactly they came from, but yes. What about them? They fight. It's terrible.
What's their
As
weakness?
soon as they will overrun a weakness.
Yes, every soldier has a weakness. Every army has a weak spot.
Well, if you shoot them, they die, but you better not get shot yourself. What are you talking about, a weakness? They are men like you. Well, woman, but you get it.
Yes, I do. I'll look back at my friends and, well, any insight you could give us would be helpful.
I don't know if you go. Why would you want to go to the fighting?
To end the war.
Uh,
The only way out
He-
is
he-
through.
He seems completely flabbergasted by you saying in the war. That it makes no sense to him.
Through to what? The palace?
Sure, let's say it's through to the palace. Then what? How do we get in?
I suppose you would need an invitation if you are trying to attend the masquerade.
I think we have that secured.
You have an invitation for all of you. You do not you do not look like royalty to me. Who did you say you?
I'll look
what's
back at
your last
Ursine.
name?
I'll look back at Ursine,
Yeah.
dressed with the locket and the dress. I believe we actually do.
No, we don't.
You,
No, we don't.
you may dress up as princess, but come on. You made fool the soldiers, but you do not fool me.
I want to, while this conversation's going on, I want to reach in my bag, in my satchel, and pull out the weird shipping label.
Ah, that was in Russian, right?
I don't know what language it is. I'm assuming it's in Russian. I want to ask him if he can read it.
He looks at it.
I think I've seen. What? This is text from the front line?
We found it. Well, if you tell me what it says.
I do not know what it says. I do not read this, but this looks like some of the people in the fight. They use a language much like this.
The Black Wind.
I do not think so. There's other people there. There's a lot going on. You understand? The battle is. It's more than just the Black Wind and our men. There are other forces that appear there.
Who else?
I do not know all of them. I think there are the ones from Russia and Germany. They have that pact. There's the Black Wind, obviously. There are some of them that have these S's. I do not know where they are from.
I'll pull out the flag out of my handbag. Who flies this flag?
That is the flag of Ethiel.
This is the flag of Ethiel.
Yes, you see it is the night sky.
Right. Similar to that of Ethiel. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. Architecture's grand. Would you like to see it? As it is right now?
What are you talking about? I can go look out the window.
I want to go and look out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, on that, I'm going to be like, wait, what?
And you look out and you see you are still in Ethiel. And you are looking down into a street that has been partially bombed out, it looks like. It looks like there are some craters there, some broken windows. There's some blood traces as well. Looks like he's a little bit closer to the fighting.
What of this Izol?
Iazel?
Azel, yes.
Oh yes, the people of the city. Some of them, they in their fears, they are turning to her. They think she will deliver them.
And what do you think?
I do not put my faith in such things as worship. I know that it is the king has the power.
Is she a pretender to that throne?
To the king, no. She does not wish to be a king. They speak of her like she will save them. She is a force for good for those that believe it, but it is worse than giving. You don't fight, you just give up. At least fight these, men that invade our city.
Absolutely.
False king.
Is that her message to side with the invaders?
She has a message of protection, of delivery back to the way of old. It's nonsense. It means nothing. The people, they will not get to the battle, to the palace.
So we're closer to the palace and the battle now.
Yeah.
I'll look around. Are there any other exits out of this room? Out of this apartment?
I mean, there's the windows which have some fire escapes behind them. There's the door behind you, which currently leads back to the apartment, but who knows?
You close it and reopen it.
Yeah, I was gonna take the night manager sign off, close it, and then reopen it.
You just have to consider that the rest of your party, I don't know if they're all
Yeah, that's what I was like.
going into the room.
Who's coming in, who's not?
Oh yeah, we
I already
definitely
went Yeah. I already looked out the window. So
Yeah, I figured everybody followed me in, but we never said that.
Okay.
So,
okay, so what can you tell us about the Black Wind?
I do not know. They gather, they invade, they attack. They are vicious. They wear their fezzes and their bolt action rifles. They use them. They're very fond of sniping people in the streets. I do not know what else to tell you. They have quite a bit of weaponry. I think they are all. They are quartered at the factory down the street.
their quarters are in the factory, you say?
Well, maybe that's it is a
Possibility.
focal point. No, a focal point, if you will.
Like a gathering point for their forces?
Yes.
Do they do that with any regularity?
Gather forces? No, this factory. It's used to make tractors. It is the how would you say? The only way through to the palace is the only way.
Ah. Very helpful. That's very helpful, Mr. Castaigne.
But the Black Wind holds it, so who can go through?
Let's blow that up.
I think we found a place for that dynamite.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
the tractor
dynamite.
factory. There's bound to be T-34s there.
On point.
Oh, we think we might.
History demands it.
Yes.
Have a May now.
Do you happen to have any tea, Mr. Castaigne? Actually, a bit thirsty.
I can go look. I do not think so. I've
Oh,
been
don't
very
bother
busy.
yourself. Don't bother yourself. Thought I smelled tea. So, what do you know of the resistance forces within Ethiel?
They are few and far between. Most of the people have joined the fighting. Some of them, they go to fights. They stay. They don't. They don't come back. I don't know. It is war.
So you don't know of any underground resistance forces that are trying to...
I am busy.
What is it you do all day?
Don't worry about it.
You seem very interested in this war, yet you're too busy to have any information about what's going on.
Yes, of course I'm interested in the war. I'm a noble citizen.
You're getting the impression, though. What's your human? I guess.
Human is...
Say, I know one of you at least is pretty high up there.
11 for me?
Okay, it's not you.
53 and psychotherapy at 50.
Yeah,
36, you meant.
36 human.
43.
Okay. I think probably everybody but Unicorn. This guy's being evasive. He definitely has another reason he's doing why he's so interested in this.
Updraft just kind of turns back from the window and he just walks toward him, heavy, serious steps, and he puts Where's Miss Castaigne? Is he standing, sitting?
Oh yeah,
He's
he's
looking for
standing.
tea,
Yeah,
right?
he walked out of one of the side rooms. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So he's gonna walk toward him, and he's just gonna say, "Mr. Castaigne, what is it
Yeah.
that you do all day?"
Do a persuasion check, I think, or basically an intimidation roll.
I don't have
There
I
it
don't.
is. Yeah.
I don't think we have just straight intimidation, but
Yeah. I mean, I do have a sledgehammer in my hand. 34. That's a success on a 50.
Alright. He kind of looks.
I look after my interests. I don't. What? Look, I. Who do you work for? Did Hildred send you?
Hildred? Is that what he said?
Yes.
I don't
Bastard
know.
relative.
I do not know a Hildred.
You do though, don't you? You do. You've been working for him this whole time. Well, you can tell him that I am the king and I know it. It belongs to me, the crown.
What
Are
are you
you-
talking about?
I am the king. He has his stupid genealogy. Is wrong. It's wrong. I have my own, and I can prove that I will be the king. I will be the king
Of what?
of Ethiel.
Oh,
saying
Prove it.
Hildred is the false king?
Prove it. We will work for you.
Yeah.
Fine.
And he walks back to his room. And I think you saw this once, but it was in very poor condition. You see this room is wall to wall, covered in yarn, name to name to name to name. It looks like an incredibly complex genealogy that he is constantly working on. You can see there's some new, stuff moved, and there's enough holes that it looks like he's pinned them up and taken it down. It looks like this is quite a lot of work.
I can't have spicy.
Does it make sense?
No, not even close to making sense.
So just
You don't even have to roll. No, it
yeah,
makes,
it's no
this
way
is-
it's accurate.
Yeah,
Okay,
this guy is yeah.
So should we deal with Hildred?
What do you mean? No. Deal with him?
Do you want
He's
him
What are you
trying-
implying?
He's trying to take your crown.
Yes, but I think you have a different idea of how this works. You prove that you are the king.
And I'm like, why?
You do not fight like fools in the street. What are you talking about?
How do you prove that you are the king?
The genealogy proves that I will be the. Look, it's Castaigne all the way back.
I want to look at that genealogy again. We were looking to see who he was related to.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that jumps out? More importantly, is there any way that his genealogy might connect over to, say, Abby?
You do see Abby's name is on there. You also see Lisa Stevens is one of them.
Is Van Fitz on there?
Van Fitz is not on there, I don't think.
What about Lizette?
But you yeah, Lizette's on there. You think though, like, that's too just you're doing like a quick glance. You can pick these names and you're just picking out little names here and there. You think if you took long enough, you'd probably find your name somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
glad
Do a
that
search
you
then.
picked up
Yeah.
on that.
Do a search.
All right. My search is 54. Yep. 23.
All right. Yeah, you find your name there, and you can see there is a string coming off of it that goes towards your daughter.
So what you're saying is I have a claim to the throne. That's what I heard.
To some level, yeah, you think you could possibly claim, but I mean, again, there's a lot of complex stuff here.
Where is the current king? Or I want to ask him, who is the current king?
So then,
Oh, yeah. Good question.
And he really just kind of hits a spot, and he looks confused, and then he almost just kind of shrinks in on himself, and he just kind of goes into a huddle and starts shaking on the floor. This little pitiful old man in the center there.
I'm gonna go. Is he like having a mental breakdown, or does he look sick?
He looks like he's having a mental breakdown.
Okay.
I guess I can try to step out of my normal scope of practice and put on some kid gloves and maybe stroke his hair, whisper some secrets to him, whatever it is that he needs to hear, to answer my question that I want to know who the king is.
The king. Is he at the palace? Is he here? He's everywhere. No, I'm the king. I will be the king.
And how do we get to the current king so that you can replace him?
And he's like rubbing his snot from under his nose. He's having a really hard time with this.
Go. You have to go to the battle, and then if you talk to Ambrose, Ambrose is there. He has the device that can get you close if you want. I mean, you can walk, but it's quicker.
It's quicker what?
To have Ambrose take you.
Where do we find Ambrose?
He is at the pier. If you go through the fighting, it should be right there.
At the
Past
pier.
Yes, past the factory.
Do you know the best way through past the factory?
You have to go through the war zone. There is no other way. But you can. I think if you sneak, you could make it. Just be aware. Not every. It is a hard place to be.
Why is it hard to be besides bullets?
It's mostly bullets.
Oh, okay. All right.
But even so, the people of Ethiel that are still there, they're starving. They will put the knife in your back as soon as they will help. Perhaps it's a terrible time. Maybe there are people you can still trust, but maybe I don't know. My people are falling apart.
How do we know what Ambrose looks like?
He is the only one at the pier. You will know him. He is Beard's a beard fella. He is a clockwork maker.
So vaguely sea captain, vaguely puppet maker.
Sure, yes. He's bald. I don't know. He's old. You will know Ambrose when you see him.
Old, bald, bearded man. Got it.
And you see he is he's kind of coming out of his panic because he's looking at a small safe that you're now seeing kind of behind all this stuff. He's inching his way towards it, but you look at it, it's not really a safe. It's a cardboard box with like a little hole cut in it.
I'm gonna reach down and place my hand on his shoulder and kind of pull him like I'm helping him up. And then, like, let's get you back to your chair, like you would guide a
Okay.
aged
yes.
person, you know.
Yeah, and he goes without a fight. He's clearly terrified.
Making eyes at Undine
Hmm?
as I walk him back to the chair.
Down, 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 down. Oh,
Not
different
those kind of eyes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Weirder things have happened.
Well, that escalated quickly.
So yeah, the other three, you're in this room. You do see kind of the cardboard box he was heading towards, the lines between names. What are you doing?
Oh my goodness.
I'm actually going to kind of step off to the side and I'm just going to start looking through these things, like rustling through papers, these newspapers that are sitting around in Tartassian, and just be generally nosy.
Okay. You can do a search.
Okay.
Is he out of sight of the safe? By the way?
Yeah, he's out of sight.
No, I don't pass, which is pathetic because my search is so high. I rolled a 94.
Market
Wow.
for improvement.
Yeah.
It's a messy room anyways, so you're not too worried about it. You think there's just a lot of junk in this place.
Okay.
Agent Undine.
Everyone stand back. I'm a pro at this.
Oh
I
god.
will get on the floor, move over towards the safe, quote unquote.
Yep.
And put my ear against it.
Yeah, and it you put your ear against it, and it straight up like flips a little bit because it's just a cardboard thing. It kind of hits it. You don't hear anything from within.
I've seen this mechanism before. It's Schrodinger Mark IV. And let's see here, and I'll lift the box.
All right. You lift the box, and the bottom was not very well secured, so you're picking it up, and it actually kind of just flops open, and a small crown falls onto the ground. But calling it a crown is generous. Like what you'd get from Burger King is nicer than this crown. It's like half-assed cardboard with paint yellow. You can tell maybe they were going for gold, but they didn't have it. There's a couple like painted circles that you think were supposed to be gems, but there's no depth to them or anything. It's just a crown.
Why couldn't we be trapped in a high budget horror film instead of a low budget one?
I guess I will kind of dig around in these newspapers. Originally, that was my whole plan for coming in here, was to try to gather some intelligence on the war. So kind of just scanning the piles of the tops of these papers to see if I see anything that's recent, I guess. 29 out of 63. So yeah.
Yeah, you recognize as you're looking through these, you're seeing a lot of pictures of this, and this is the part that Ursine, who's also looking through these and helping, you realize that you are seeing these men in black uniforms and fezzes. You're seeing more nobly pictured people in red uniforms with gold piping and white collars. I mean, obviously it's black and white, but they're described in kind of lurid details in some of the text of this. They have little white helmets on them, and they look like they're like the Athel forces. Like they're very much like the boys will get them kind of attitude. But as you're looking through, you're seeing some of these other forces, and you're pretty sure you're seeing some Red Army uniforms. And then that's straight up like that's straight an SS uniform from World War II. Like the clearly you're just looking through this and this is a mishmash. Like, yep, there's somebody from Vietnam, and it's just every war that you can think of. Pretty much, if you're any student of history, you're just finding all kinds of people.
So it looks like forces from all the different wars
Yeah.
that are documented are showing up in these newspapers and in these stories.
It could be very well that there's just lots of apertures to reach this place. And they just wander in. Hey, there's a fight. We should go towards that. Oh, wait. Who are these people? I don't know. They're shooting at us. Shoot back at them.
This place does seem to absorb chaos.
It does.
It also absorbs the ends of periods, places, people, things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sure does.
Yeah. That it does.
And do we see, are there people on both? Well, oh, I'm not even there. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
I'm with the old man. Oh, well, if he sat down, I would have come back.
Yeah, that's fine. If you
All right.
guys want to chat it out
Yeah.
amongst yourselves.
All right, then yeah. So if this place is just absorbing the ends of things, are there soldiers in the same uniform on both sides, or are the Carcosans or the Ethiolan, whoever?
Yeah. It's really tough to tell. It doesn't look like they have alliances that stick, if that makes sense. Like, if there is an alliance, you see it in a newspaper like, oh, peace made with Germanic troops, and then a few pages later is truce broken and cowardly sort of turnabout. Is there's no consistent side by side. It seems like this just constant mash of betrayal and alignment. It's very difficult to go through.
And Ithiel is a city state.
Yeah, that's where you are.
And remembering the invitation or the postcard, it actually talked about how Carcosa is swallowing all of these things. So we are in a place, a city state within a nation, or a place that is ruled by the king.
Hmm.
I want to look around for the crown. I want to ask for whatever was in the safe.
Here, there's the crown.
Put it on.
Okay.
I'm wearing it.
You are wearing this cardboard crown.
And I try not to laugh in my peasant dress on top of, my modern 1990s clothing and this locket I pulled out of a paint can. And I'm over here laughing at him.
Those weren't peasant clothes. Those were upper class clothes.
Yeah, they're pretty nice.
Okay, well, regardless,
I curtsy
I'm more
to the king.
like a
kind of
like
smart-assy.
a sweater and a suit jacket, and I'm wearing this dress on top of it. I'm still laughing at him.
All right, and what are you kind of hoping will happen, Agent Updraft?
That I feel more royal. That it's the same thing, because remember, it's all just a play. It's still a play. Like, in the back of Updraft's mind, he knows that it's just a play, and this is a prop, and props signify roles. So wearing the crown signifies to the play that I am the king, and I am going to attempt to leverage that authority at an appropriate time.
Okie dokie.
All right, roll sanity.
Or maybe not so appropriate time. I guess it really just depends on, how
this
you
roll
read
goes.
the room. It just depends on how you read the room. 16. I mean, I'm doing all right. Is that one?
The time
Um,
being.
Yeah, so you have this crown on, and you're kind of willing yourself almost to like, yes, this will impart some nobility, and you're in the middle of this yarn spreading around the room, and as you watch, like, your eyes twist and the yarn spreads out, and you realize, like, you look at a name and it goes out, and it's like a fractal as you're watching as the room gets more and more and more complex to your eyes, and you're watering and it hurts, and lose a sanity as the crown just cracks in two and falls off of your head.
All right. Is it broken in any other places? Does it
looks-
look like this has happened before?
No, it doesn't.
Well, why'd you go and break it? Big head.
I want to put the pieces back together.
I'm assuming you're quiet about that.
Yeah.
And not,
Yeah.
for
That's
the
kind
other-
of under my
What?
breath.
You broke it?
Did you break it?
Great.
You monsters!
okay.
I want to
yeah,
put it back together, and if there's like tape or anything in
there's
this
some.
room,
Yeah, there's some tape around.
yeah, or paper mache, whatever.
Yeah. There's like Scotch tape basically. You can
Yeah.
wrap around it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
it's obvious it broke, but
and all this shit just got real weird. Did I get any insight into the situation from all of that? Like
roll- So I think you've all done this a fair bit. I think you're all probably starting to realize that you can kind of think things,
yeah,
and they kind of happen
yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
But if you can't, you don't feel like you have a good control on it. Like when it fails, it's not good. It either interrupts you or there's some like feedback almost.
So are we heading?
To the
I
docks?
guess. Yeah. We need to go to the pier.
Yeah. I would assume that there's a harbor house or something of the sorts probably around there. I'll ask Mr. Castaigne on our way out. Are there any prominent buildings nearby the docks?
Yes, I think I mentioned it. There's a factory.
Other than the factory.
The pier is on the lake. I mean, it is next to the gallery, but that also is past the factory.
That's fine. That's fine. The gallery, you say?
Yes, the gallery.
Is it a fine building in its time?
Yes, I mean, it's quite a thing to see. Incredible artworks.
I'll have to stop and see it then. Shall
Uh,
we? We're gonna head out, Mr.
you know, my
Castaigne.
brother is also there.
Your brother?
Yes, he is at the gallery.
What's your brother's name?
It's
Do I remember
Hildred.
his brother's name? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I was
it's
gonna say
it's
from the-
Hildred, yes.
Hildred. Okay.
Hildred. Okay, that's the brother. Thought that, but
Bastard.
bastard relative.
Doesn't he have? So why does he not have a claim?
I do. Did you even look into my room?
I did. He's
I'm
your
almost
brother.
there. Yes, but it's complicated.
Are you the older brother? That's usually how these things work in lineage. The oldest son is the heir to the throne. So, if you're
What
the,
are you trying to do?
I'm just
Come
trying to
into-
help
you
validate
come
your
into my
claim.
place and you.
No, I'm trying to help validate your claim. If you were the older
Dare you.
brother, then you
How dare
would.
you? I do not have to stand for this. I am the rightful king, and you know this.
Yes, I'm just trying to
It-
help you.
Can you explain the genealogy to me?
If you've seen my room and you do not understand, I cannot explain it to you. It's complicated.
That's why I was asking if you could explain it.
I will explain it when the time is right.
Doesn't everyone
Okay.
on your board hold equal claim?
No, it's obviously not. I mean, yes, in theory, but no, no, of course not. It's you know, the king at the time,
And he's clearly just getting flustered under the questioning as you're getting less and less confident he knows what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you for your time.
yes, of course. You're dismissed, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to deal with this.
Very well. Have a great day, Mr. Castaigne. We'll see you later.
All right, and where are you headed?
Open the door thinking of the gallery.
I see. I see.
Not that I've ever seen it before. And mind you, that Unicorn has never done the door trick before. She's seen everyone else do it. The only time she did it was with the night manager. So never had the so to her it's people just think of where they want to go, open the door, and they're there, right? So
All right.
that's my logic behind this.
Yeah, roll a sanity.
Of course. That is a failure.
All right. You open the door, and out beyond it is a street. As you kind of take tentative steps out, you can see that the road, one way down the road, nothing. The other way, there's the palace. But it looks like there's like blockades in the way. You're gonna have to take kind of a skirting approach to get there. But you can see clearly there's the palace, and then a building you hadn't really noticed before is there, and it, like, you can kind of see the top of it. It has a kind of like a statue. It kind of looks like an artistic museum of some kind. Yeah, your eyes kind of drawn to it as you're looking.
Well, I think I got us close. How much sand loss do I take for that? One?
No
No
sand
sand
loss,
loss? Okay.
which is probably they don't mention it, but you probably should. But no sand losses. You're kind of getting the hang of this.
250.
You are hearing quite a bit more gunfire now. Now you're all hearing it.
The palace isn't shifting or
No, the palace
is
is
solid now. Like when we were on the
solid as
rooftop,
can be.
it
The
looked like it
palace
was-
has always been solid. That seems like the only place here that does not shift in your vision.
Okay, I thought when we were on the roof, it looked like it was getting closer and further.
The
and-
distance in between, yes.
Okay, the distance in between. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So how do we want to do this?
So I'm assuming we're going to Ambrose.
Well, I don't
Right.
Yeah, that was what.
know if we need to. If we're already past.
Oh, you're not past the fighting.
Oh, we're not
It is
past. the
still,
fighting.
yes,
Okay.
it is. There are
There-
blockades, broken stuff between you and the palace.
We have a slight problem. Logistically.
Oh.
Assuming we needed the explosives.
Oh.
Did you What did you do?
They're in
Left them.
they're in a building across the street from where we were previously.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We did not go back.
It's fine.
Trying to get away. I don't know.
Perhaps were they already armed?
Oh yes, they're supposed to go off at midnight
God.
supposedly, which I highly doubt.
Well, if they do, perhaps it will create a distraction long
Yeah.
enough for us to get through the lines.
They may have already gone off for all I know. So
Yeah, we have no way of telling what time it is here, right? We have no.
Correct. Yep.
Do you want to go back for them, or are you not concerned?
I can cause enough of a problem, especially in a tractor factory. I mean, heavy machinery, lots of gears, possibly a tractor, possibly a T-34. So, it begs itself to a World War II action movie plot. So I think we'll be okay.
Very well.
And I just shrug, like, whatever.
Barnstorming with the tank.
Right on.
I want to look over and see if I can't plot the best route through the city in order to get to the pier and avoid the areas that
Mhm.
are most likely to be being watched and patrolled.
So, you don't even need to roll because you are kind of just taking a look. You realize that is impossible because literally the space ahead of you shifts and moves, and an area that was clear becomes not. And like you're looking back, and you look back, the road changes as you go. You make progress, right? You're closer now than you were before, but it's difficult to plot it out. It seems to rely more on intent than
Yeah, and
anything.
with the
yeah.
okay, so with the streets moving, updraft is we're in the play. We're still in the play. It's the same thing as when we were navigating the fourth floor and all of those spaces. It's just now we're outdoors. It's set change. So same thing. He's just going to be like, I think I know the way. Because in his mind, this is his kingdom. And so he is going to lead the way toward the pier. He
Okay.
knows that if he goes down a little bit, cuts left in an alley, there's going to be a dumpster, and then you just got to go around that dumpster, and that'll put you pretty close to the pier.
All right. Roll sanity. All right. You move, and you're not wrong. You're going down an alley. You're finding some dumpsters. You're kind of having to move though, because there's more of these blockades. As you're getting on further, you're finding bodies here and there that are dead by gunshot wound. There's the distant sound of gunfire and machine guns going.
Close shot, like are they like executed style, or like they were fighting?
There are a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yep.
The ones that were fighting,
Yes.
I want to check to see if their bodies have been looted.
Yes, for the most part they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't think there's anything of particular value on them? No weaponry left behind there.
Right. I'm just to see if the opposing force had come through after
Yes.
shooting them.
Yes, I see. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because as you're kind of doing that, you're looking at the doors too. They're marked with this 3 red lines that kind of make you think of a wave. You think the black wind might have been through here, possibly. And does anyone have artillery at 10% or better?
40.
40.
Not even
What?
making it up.
What?
40%.
Of course he does. Of course
So-
he does.
Updraft, you're kind of looking around. You're down by the body. The other 3 are nearby. You hear a fast series of these hollow, distant explosions. And
Like
kind
boom,
of,
boom, boom.
yeah, kind of like boom, boom, boom. And Updraft, you have enough skills. I think the others can suspect that they're firing at your position.
Yeah, so Updraft shouts incoming and just turns and runs. And basically, if there's a hard object that he can run toward, he's going to run past the hard object and then cut to the left
Yep.
and down and drop against it. And he just, when he does, he balls up into a ball on the ground. Like, he lays as flat as he can, but with his arms pulled up underneath him so that like they're covering the sides of his face.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like, this is a man, like, he does this with such ease and directness, like it's second nature to him. Like, he just yells incoming and just takes off running.
All right.
I
what are
mean,
the other three?
If he does that,
Yeah, if he runs,
if there is one thing that I am going to listen to him on, when he has a reaction like this, I'm like, fuck, and I'm doing the exact same thing he's doing.
Yep. Because I don't ever see Updraft run from anything. He always runs into everything. So if he's running away, I'm running away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don channels his inner gazelle and takes off.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be a 40-meter dash followed
Yeah.
by getting behind whatever it can.
Yep. And you're running from this position, and the ground behind you, where you were a second ago, explodes and goes down the street. And it doesn't really matter how fast you are, you're still getting this explosion racking up around you. You're getting hit with the rubble that's going around. I'm rolling a quick little something.
Which is why he's
Oh,
doing
boy.
this, so he's not
Yeah,
blinded.
Just a little something. All right. Everybody take 3 damage as you're just buffeted and blown around by this. You think, yeah, ducking for cover was good, because if you had stayed put, you would have been toast.
Catching an
Grant's
80
hurting.
millimeter mortar.
Yeah.
Grand's not looking so hot.
Yeah,
She was
I'm
already
not
half
either.
dead. She's still looking half dead now, though. She was
I
just
think
half
it's-
dead for being old.
I think it's time to start doing some first aid rolls here.
Get
Yeah.
inside first, and like,
Yeah.
and immediately, soon as Updraft realizes how messed up they are, he finds the first door and just goes at it and just hits it with that sledge, all like a battering ram, right above
Right.
the doorknob where there would be a lock, and just hitting the door as hard as he can. And if there's anyone in that room when he goes in, they can catch a hammer too.
All right.
All right. Go ahead and roll a sanity for me, if you
Yeah.
would be so kind.
Yeah, little make a little PTSD roll. 1.
1.
What?
Nice.
I'm fine. I'm perfectly
Oh,
fine.
No. I didn't want you to do that.
Oof.
All right. You
His whole goal is to find a safe place
yeah.
so that everyone can be treated. But
Yeah,
we got to get off the street.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, you break into this building, and you're wishing for a safe space and wishing for a safe space, and as you break through the door, you kind of enter the other side of this building. You realize you're in a courtyard. There is a statue in the middle of it. This is wide open ground, and there is a looks like a machine gun nest at the other side of it.
Pointing toward me.
Towards you, yes.
And what's around?
It is wide open ground up to that machine gun nest, other than a statue. And you think the only reason they haven't seen you is the door is blocked by the statue's line of sight at the moment.
Hmm.
I like
Can I see
Critical
the palace?
success. Yeah, it's past the machine gun nest. Makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, just thinking about it.
there's like a particular way that
Hmm.
Yeah,
But I mean, it
Updraft-
was also past like that alley you were just in. It was down that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, guess it'd be a good fight, flight, or freeze moment. Updraft does not like the idea of running headlong toward a machine gun nest. He is not on board, but he does not want to go backward into the mortar streets because that'll kill you faux show, and you can't outrun him forever. So with them not being able to see, he's going to turn around and just kind of, and just kind of like gets down and crouches low and tries to, I guess, move to like stay within the statue, like move
Okay.
toward the statue. Can't go back. I don't want to go forward, but I can't go back.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're kind of crouching up to that. Roll stealth. What are the other three doing? You can see that Updraft has broken into this courtyard, and you can see there is a machine gun nest on the other side. You're pretty sure it's manned. Yep, good.
So feasibly, he's run in, correct?
Yes.
So it's
Yep.
tracking him. So I have just a few seconds before it hits him, takes him out, and begins shooting.
Well,
so
They don't. You don't think they've noticed him yet, but that is correct. Is if they see him, that sequence of events
Yeah.
is right. Yep.
So I'm going to sprint as hard as I can to the right side of the courtyard, push off the wall, and sprint right at them. So I'm basically doing a cue ball, like a pool ball bounce rebound, right at them.
I like it. Go ahead and
Can't track us all.
Yep. 2 rolls, if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
The first one is a
Athletics.
actually just do an athletics check. I'm just checking.
All right. Let's see. Athletics. I think I have a straight at 50.
When he breaks into a run, Updraft would pick up from what he's doing, and he would break the opposite direction,
Okay.
opposite angle. Basically, they can't shoot everybody; they're already tracking him, and so the whole idea is basically to S run or C run in, and he's gonna hammer somebody. Somebody gonna eat a hammer.
All right. Make an athletics check too.
Okay, so I passed the first one and I passed the
Okay.
second one by a lot more.
Okay. Perfect. Yep. Great. Wow, you guys. You guys get up there and you're kind of seeing this machine gun. It seems like it kind of catches. It's trying to track Undine, and there is a burst of fire. The people left behind can see it firing, but it's a little slow. And the two of you get to the other side, and you see there is a young boy in a ragtag red uniform, and he's just he looks scared out of his mind as the two of you are coming up.
Hands up.
He drops
He's
the
by himself.
yeah, he's by himself behind this.
All right, I'll just hit him with the handle, like dot him in the head, knock him out.
All right. Yeah, I'm not gonna have you roll unless you really want to. As between the two of you, you clobber him pretty good. Are you going for the knockout? Is that right? You're
Yeah,
trying to-
it basically just one of those. Got up on top of him, and I was moving with a purpose. And
Right.
when I get to the end there, I don't hit him with the hammer, but he's gonna get hit. All right,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Just run up, because that's Updraft. Just pop him in the head with the handle, and hopefully it. I mean, he knows how to hit a man and knock him out.
Yeah, and this kid just kind of crumples to the ground, and
Yep.
he's unconscious. You do notice as well. Not only does he have that machine gun that was firing, he has some grenades on him as well.
Oh yeah, that's we're gonna take that. I'm gonna run his pockets. I mean,
Yeah.
you know how Updraft does.
Yep.
Opportunistic.
Yes. And the you'll find that the grenades have a lethality of 10% and a kill radius of 5 meters. So
Is this
they're
like a 30 cal Bishka? Like
Is it a mounted machine
Maxim?
gun or?
Yeah, it's on a tripod or a bipod.
yeah,
at
yeah, it
least.
is. It's a lethality 10% weapon, but this one is on a tripod. But I mean, yeah, you've got some hefty fellas. You could probably move it.
Pull
So
the
it's-
pin, separate them.
I guess
Yeah.
seeing that they've made it, kind of look out, seeing that they've made it across, and looks like they have taken the machine gun nest. It looks like we can probably approach safely and cautiously. Is that a good place where we can kind of have some cover to patch up, like behind
yeah,
this
yeah.
this machine gun nest? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give first aid to the kid.
You want to give first aid to him? Go for it.
Yeah, I knocked him out. I'm just basically like, sorry, kid. Like, you got what you got. You had it coming, but I'm
You shot at the
not.
wrong people, kid.
damn Nazis.
Nope.
Mhm.
52 on a 40.
You
Alright.
think he'll be unconscious for a while? Basically, will be the outcome of
Do
that.
you- Do you want me to take a look at this kid?
No, I was just trying to, help keep him from a TBI. He'll be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll look at everybody else, and I'll start with Gran. Gran. Yeah. That is a successful first aid, so roll your d4, I guess. Myself. That is a success.
That's better.
2. All right. Now I'm gonna look at Undine. That's also a success. And last, I'm gonna come up to updraft. Updraft, do you want me to pull some of the shrapnel out of your head?
Yeah, I mean, no one's looking to walk around with shrapnel. It's not an
Okay.
axe wound.
All right, and I
Little
failed
style.
on yours.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
was not a critical, but it was an 87. So that is
Kid's just getting more blood on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bleeding all over.
Yeah, and are we okay for just a few more minutes among people? I know we've gone
Yeah, that's fine.
quite long, because I
Yeah.
think there is the possibility. So you're finishing up your patching, and you're starting to kind of look around this machine gun nest because it's opens up beyond that, and you're seeing that there are some grates on this side near the walls, and they're kind of one of those that are a little bit L-shaped, so you have a flat and then a flat on the ground. They're like built into the wall. You see some eyes looking through them, and a couple of them start to push up, and you see these sunken faced people crawling out from these like basements and cellars, and their clothes are ragged and they look half dead, and you can see they're kind of coming forward, and they're pleading. They're like, just, do you have something, please, and they're speaking Tartessian, but luckily you are currently speaking it as well.
Is there any food around the machine gun nest? The boy have a knapsack?
He does not have any food.
I'm gonna snatch that. I'm gonna get real up on that machine gun, and I'm just gonna point out they all need to stop advancing, so we can hear them from where they are just fine.
Please.
Racket.
Okay.
Gran-
Okay.
Granny have anything?
Let's roll a luck, see if I got any cookies in my purse.
Do you think you might have cookies in your purse?
I mean, I always did have cookies in my purse, but I might be out. That's what I was gonna be
Would,
like.
you,
I
would
could
you
roll a
like
luck.
to roll a? Would you like to roll a sanity first?
Sure, I'll roll a sanity first. Sure, that's a fail.
You pull open your bag and yeah, there's some cookies in there. In fact, the tin's a little warm still. They're fresh.
Okay. Well, that's weird. The hell? So yeah, I'll take the. Tell you what, are they kind of? Would they be blocking our ability to go forward?
They're not at the moment, but I mean they're kind of around it.
I'll look at Updraft and say, if they take me, you take them, and I'll pull the cookies out, open the tin, and what I'm gonna do is walk, kind of to the left of us, keeping an arc, just staying out of the crossfire kind of
Yep.
line. But I'm gonna set them away from us to where when they rush for the tin of cookies, they're not rushing us, right? So I'm gonna set them 20 or 30 yards, maybe to our left, and then I'll circle back, kind of.
And you see one of them is kind of creeping towards it, keeping an eye on Updraft as they're doing that. They're creeping towards the tin after you've left it, like they're gonna grab it. What do you have? Is it
Just some sweets, my dear. Just some sweets. Help yourself.
yes? Oh
Leave
my goodness!
enough for everyone.
Oh my
Take
goodness!
what you need only.
And I mean, the first one that gets there is immediately like shoving a couple of them in their mouth. It's good. It's good. Oh, we haven't had these in so long. Oh my God.
Don't eat
Oh,
them too
thank you.
fast. You'll get a tummy ache.
Are you with her?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Praise be. Praise be.
Tell the others they can rise up. She is with them. She is with them.
Come out, everyone. The promised prophets. They're here. They come bearing gifts, manna from heaven, and you are seeing like you had 3 or 4 more people are pulling out of this, and you're seeing whole families walking out of the sewers and pulling out. Kids are there, and they all have this very hollow-faced, ragged look.
Great.
They look miserable, and they're passing around the cookies. Oh, thank you so much. She said you would come.
And here we are. Now, for your safety, once you've gotten what you need to return to your homes and stay inside so nothing happens.
But real quick, we were prophesied? Was that what you said? That there was a prophecy that we were going to be here?
Yes.
Did I hear you properly? What is
Yes.
this prophecy?
Ayazel, she told us that you would be through here,
What did she tell you about us?
that you would come bringing gifts, sustenance. She said that one of you might even stay and help us.
I'll look around at the other 3.
How would we stay and help you?
I am the one she spoke of. We are all facets of me. And with your help, we can replace the king and end this madness and return life.
Wait, no. What? No, that's not what you replace the king. No, the king is already here. The false king is the one that we are worried about.
That's the one to replace. He's the one perpetuating this.
But he's the one invading. We don't wish him to be replaced. You mean removed, surely.
I don't say anything. I just let him talk.
And they're kind of looking among the four of you because also you did drop the bombshell that everyone is just a facet of you.
Yeah, they were
And-
all me.
They're all very confused by this.
It's okay. She does not always speak clearly, and solutions are not always easy to understand.
Uh, I suppose, but I don't know. What do you want from us? We would trade anything to have one of the saviors with us.
Safe passage to the piers.
We're at the palace. We need to
Are
go
we
into
at the palace?
No, you're not at the
No.
palace. You are
Didn't think we were.
outside.
We're
Yep.
still outside
Oh.
the palace. We
Yes,
still have a ways to go,
right.
from what I understand.
Yes, correct. You will still need to go, and this is what they explain to you: is that they cannot get you to the pier, but they can get you to the factory. And the
Okay.
factory is like that is they can get. They're gonna have to take you through the sewers, but they can get you to the factory. From there, that's where things get dicey because that's a stronghold of sorts, and then beyond that, there's the pier.
Yeah. If we can get to the factories.
Do any of you men have military experience?
A couple of them raised their hand.
Do you know how to work this? They're pretty simplistic.
The machine gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of nod.
It's yours now. Protect your neighborhood.
We'll
Thank
need
you.
it at the factory.
Well, when we're done at the factory, we'll let them take it back with them. How about that?
We're not going to be able to move this thing and use it strategically or tactically. But we have
Sure we
grenades.
We can pull a pen, carry a tripod, set it up, create an Overwatch.
Against a prepared position,
We just become more prepared, I think, is Agent
machine
Updraft.
guns are air denial weapons.
Yes,
We're going into
and
someone else's area if you choose the bad choice of words.
It will take roughly 30 to 50 people to stop this machine gun. Yep. And if a few of them know how to use it, then they may be able to hold off. I'm just saying, leaving it here, you're leaving the most powerful weapon we have.
We're not going to be able to kill the King in Yellow with bullets.
Oh, I'm talking about going to the factory.
Yeah. They're already at the factory.
The King in Yellow is not at the factory, I don't believe.
Our enemy is at the factory currently. We're not going to be able to pin them down with machine gun fire in their fortification.
No, you're right. We won't be able to pin them down, but if we can draw them out, and then, so I think I'm clicking with Updraft and I spent a lot of time together, and I'm picking up what he's laying down. If we can draw them out in groups, small tactical assault groups, and we can lay down that fire on them, and let their attention stay concentrated to our machine gun, then we, the four of us, can make our way in and do what we need to do with the inside.
Isolated
where-
machine guns with fields of fire, or with limited fields of fire, are easy to take out, as you've seen us do here just by running.
We beat up a child.
Yeah, all you had to do is hold down the button.
We overwhelmed an untrained child that is far from a grown man who
Fair
has
enough.
lived life and has something to live for,
Mm.
or worse, something to die for.
And we say that at
We-
the same time.
Yeah. And updraft just kind of like looks over at Unicorn and like just stares at Unicorn for a minute and is thinking real hard at Unicorn, and then turns back toward Undine and just says, "We do not need the machine gun. We will leave it for them, and if they survive, then they will make good use of it." but
Oh,
it
heck
is
yeah.
the only way we get through this factory, because I am fairly certain that there's we have a handful of grenades. This is the best distraction. Use both, and they may even be able to overrun this factory. But the fact of the matter remains, they are fighting in streets beyond the factory, trying to make it to the palace.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have all of their forces there. Will be a garrison, rear D. Those motherfuckers probably never even loaded a magazine into their rifles. This is the best way to get through.
Fair enough.
And with that updraft, like, he pulls the pin on the
A
tripod.
grenade, right?
No, on the tripod. Pulls the pin on the tripod. Pulls the pin on the tripod.
Yep.
Points at two of the men and says that look in better condition than the others. I know it's
Yeah,
a relative.
right. Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's relative.
Yeah, yeah,
I know it's relative, right? Be like,
yeah. Between the
Okay.
two of them, they'll be able to haul
Yeah.
this thing around. Yeah.
and then just tell them, be like, take it. And then updraft is going to pick up an ammo can in each hand, because I'm assuming there are ammo cans to go with this
Sure.
machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would know better than I. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have.
It's gotta come from
bullets
somewhere.
coming.
Gotta
Yeah,
fire
bullets coming
bullets, yeah.
cans. Yeah, bullets coming cans.
Yeah,
So
checks out.
he'll just pick them up, and he will carry them, and
Okay.
lead the way.
And they lead you down through the sewers, and they kind of chat as you're going. They're kind of questioning you about Iazel. Like, what is she like in person? You've met her, right?
Oh yes,
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have.
multiple times.
Yes.
To be so
She's-
lucky.
She's actually rather unpleasant.
You definitely don't want to see her
What?
bad side. You don't want to be on her bad side.
Oh,
I think
yes.
is what my companion means.
wrath of the Lord and whatnot, right?
Exactly. Yes, yes. She can be a bit wiry. I've seen her nearly take a man's arm off once with a hatchet.
Bit of a battle axe, if you will.
Mm,
Pain in the neck.
mhm.
Well, we hope someday that she can be brought here again, but she went ahead.
Yes.
Went ahead.
She's at the masquerade, is my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Mm,
I see.
But are you sure that you don't wish to stay for a bit? You've already accomplished more than we have. You have food, you have weaponry. It's with you here, we can actually fight, perhaps.
you can fight without us, for she has willed it so. I'm just gonna feed into their hopes and dreams. Like, I'm just gonna pump them full of
You
hopes
can
and
do
dreams.
a persuade. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
grant that.
Okay, cool.
It's not at a plus anything though, because it's clearly
But
bullshit.
they ate my cookies.
They did. That's gotta help you.
Nope, that is not a pass. That is a fail.
And I mean, they're not like hostile with it, but you get the impression that when you're like, you can fight, they're like, bullshit, we can fight. That's all right. And they'll lead you up then, finally out of the sewers, and we'll end tonight as you are approaching the factory. You come up alongside a number of barricades, tanks, and rubble, littering the area, along with hundreds of corpses just lined in the street in various pieces, various uniforms. It is a massacre through here. I mean, you were hearing it in the sewers, kind of the thud, thud, thud of more of this artillery. And as you get out, you can see craters. You can see some new artillery holes being made. There is the sound of machine gun fire. It is loud and it is nearby. And you can kind of peek out like a little bit through some of these barricades they've made, and you see that at the center of all of this is a huge L-shaped building that is just surrounded with gun smoke, explosions. There's bodies burning on the ground. And you see every once in a while that some soldier makes a run for it towards the factory and then just gets obliterated by mortars, machine guns. They look like, I'm just going to take my gun and make a run for it. And you're seeing they're not making it through, and anybody that makes it even close is not getting through clean, at the very least. And behind this horrible massacre, you just see the looming palace. And I think we will stop there for tonight, if that's okay with everybody.
Works for me. Works for me. All right, there we have it. As we are getting ready to charge the stand, and we're gonna wrap it here. Thanks again, Nathan, for running, and for all of you for playing. What a great fun time we're having! I can't believe I just reached in my bag and pulled out a tin of warm cookies. I should have eaten one first. Anyway,
That's a trick you need to learn in real life.
yeah. I
Go
can't
make cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
That's what that means. I have to go now and make cookies.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. It's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
happening. I'm going to bed. Anyway,
What?
thanks so much for tuning in tonight, everybody. It's been a real blast. Make sure you join our Discord channel to stay up to date with everything that's happening. Remember, we're the United Adventure Company. Deception is a right. Truth is a privilege. And innocence? Well, that's just a luxury. Until next time, stay out of our dungeons. Good night, everybody.